here we are, back once again. It's been a little while
It
since our last one of
has.
these. I think the original intention of these things was for it to be weekly or bi-weekly or something. Every like video file or
Yeah,
folder I have of these things is weekly, like the
that's
files
what
where
I
I
think it was supposed
take
to
the
be,
notes.
but also
Oops.
it's a little hard.
Yeah,
Hard to do that.
yeah. But if we run these once a month, they'll be a little bit longer than if they, were weekly
Mm.
instead. So this one might be a little bloated. I have on my side at least quite a bit, and
Yes.
I know you have a,
Um,
a little bit more as well. But it's still the same rule, I guess, for the films. Instead of covering goddamn 30 of these shits, we'll we'll try to at least stick to at least five. I know you couldn't abide by that rule last time, Peter, because you had to talk about all these franchises with
the franchises
a
kind of
billion different
help.
movies, but also you
Yeah.
weren't necessarily going into like the specifics of like each and every one of them. You're
I'm
kind of,
sure am not doing that. And I'm not doing that again.
because I
So,
know I know a certain franchise that you've
yes,
been
I've
getting
begun to
into.
tackle. Yeah, and
Um,
we will certainly discuss all that.
so yeah, we can start us off with movies. I guess for the sake of consistency in the history of the show, I could begin um, with a little film called Being There, which is
Mm.
from, oh God, what decade? I should have this pulled up. 1979. Um, and
Okay.
adept listeners of this show of ours may recall this film being mentioned in a different video of ours, where specifically I sought out this movie with the intention of watching it, but I was interrupted by my realization that I needed to instead watch a different set of movies,
Yes, very
which
important
overtook.
set of movies.
Which if people listening don't know what set of movies I'm referring to, they should go back and rewatch all of our videos before this, starting at the beginning, and you know you'll find it at some point. I believe in you.
Hard to
Um,
miss.
but but Being There is a movie that I watched since then, and it is very good. Um, if you remember in Twin Peaks: The Return, Peter, there's this character called Dougie.
Hmm.
The protagonist in this is sort of like that. I don't know if the
Okay.
archetype has a name, like it's associated with it, or if there's like one who like character who it could be like attributed to like down the line, like here's the first version of this character and that's like the name of it.
Hmm.
I feel like this guy, whatever his name, Chance, I guess is what it is, played by Peter Sellers. um he's a fairly, I guess, earlier version of this archetype of character where it's just like some sort of incompetent dude, mentally and physically, I guess,
Hmm.
going around, and people are uh, taking his words, listening to them, but they're not really like hearing him. You know what I mean? Like they,
Yes.
he means things one way, they take things another, and not only comedy ensues, but also just a good story in general. And it to like have a character like that where he means one thing and then the characters take it in like a completely different direction, that does sort of require good writing where and this one I think is a good example of that. And it has a quite the interesting ending that can be interpreted in a couple of different ways, and it's just a nice time all around. So I would definitely recommend this one.
It's yeah, I've been meaning to watch it. I do
Yeah.
love the movie poster. I think it's
Oh
just
yeah, the
like
movie posters, yeah, a
iconic
beast.
and it looks great.
Hmm.
Plus, I do love this kind of character archetype. I even put like Forrest Gump in that kind of
Oh yeah,
archetype to
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah, yeah.
extent, where like, it's a bit of an incompetent main character,
Sure.
but things happen around him that will like that usually benefit him,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of comedy, as you said.
Yeah, that's basically this one where he's starts off in sort of a shitty position, and it's literally
Hmm.
like, oh my god, what is he gonna do? And then a bunch of random good things start happening to him, but it's a mix of luck and also just
Yeah,
whatever kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. They're feel good movies to some extent,
One hundred
and
percent.
I'll have to check it out. On my side of the street,
Hmm.
I believe last we talked, I was discussing starting back into all of the Marvel movies and catching up.
Oh yeah,
And so I ended up catching up with all of them since the Eternals, except for the shows. I haven't dealt with that
Sure.
yet. But that encompasses the Eternals, Doctor Strange, and Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, the second Black Panther, Ant-Man, the Quantumania one, and then the Marvels, which came out. I guess they've been doing like two or three a year, but they have had none this year. Have there been any Marvel movies dropping in 2024? I feel like I
I
can't
don't
even
know.
recall. But I will say that out of all of these new age Marvel movies that I've watched, I can't even say I really enjoyed any of them. I would say the second Black Panther was probably the best.
Yeah.
Um, but also that movie has its own problems with being, a little too long, a
Oh
bit
my God, yeah.
all
It's
over
like
the
two and a
place.
half hours, or is it two
Yeah.
hours, 40 minutes?
I did.
It's close.
It's 2 hours plus 40. Yeah, two hours and 40 minutes. I liked Namor, but also his character was like kind of sidelined to some extent, which is kind of crazy. And also I don't know if they handled him super well. I would have liked more out of him, I think. Um, but that would be my favorite of the Marvel movies I've watched. I'd say the worst one is probably Quantumania. It's just a messy, 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 messy movie, especially now considering
Yeah.
all that's happened since a certain Kang has left the MCU.
Ooh.
Um,
Oh yeah, that's true. You don't like
Eternals was
Modoc?
also,
Is that the dude's name, right?
yeah, the the amount of CGI and VFX in this
Hmm.
movie, I don't know where they had these artists working, what kind of conditions, what factory-like conditions they were, the sweatshops that they must have been going through to pump out all of that content. But I don't know if there's like maybe three shots in the entire movie that are like on a practical stage, it feels like, or like maybe filmed in real
Yeah.
life without a green screen. It's kind of disappointing. I'd say Eternals was better than that in the cinematography lens, but
Okay.
everything else about Eternals was way way worse. Um, also one of the worst ones Marvel movies I think I've seen, just because of how boring it is. It's another like
Yeah,
over two
it's
hour
so
long.
bloated, and it's an introduction to
Yes,
all of
yeah,
them, and it's all so
yeah,
surface level. It's like you can't like
yep,
balance 12
yeah,
new goddamn characters or however many there are. Yeah,
yeah.
it's just
There's
like set
just
up to
there's no.
fail.
It was set up to fail without a doubt. So I can't be that surprised. But other than that, I'd say none of the other recent Marvel movies have really stood out either.
Hmm.
Like egregiously, I'd say Thor: Love and Thunder was really messy as well, just because of how
Yeah,
tonally inconsistent it
yeah,
was.
that one was annoying. It felt like Taika Waititi just kind of like went off and did like his own thing with like no regulations or
Yeah,
whatever. And like
yeah,
I'm sort of into a decent some of his stuff, but like yeah,
yeah.
it was just
When
like
he
too much
has
in like his sphere of whatever.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something to do with him getting burnt out on Marvel or just something to do with,
Yeah.
I don't know, his ego getting out of check. But
I just remember the
his stuff
comedy
with
being
like,
really bad.
yeah, his stuff with the in the shadows they live in the what is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
The
They live in
vampire
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah.
That's great. And I thought, Jojo Rabbit was pretty good too.
Yeah, I really like
Um,
that one also. And the Thor
Ragnarok was good.
Ragnarok, yeah, it was good.
Yeah, one of the better Marvel movies, but
Hmm.
unfortunately couldn't stick it with the fourth installment in the Thor movies.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they should just let Chris Hemsworth leave. I don't know how healthy it is for him to be juicing up all the time. But I mean, if The Rock's doing it, then he can do it as well.
If
Uh,
fucking what's it, Hugh Jackman at age whatever,
yeah,
he's like 60 almost
Hugh
maybe.
Jackman, ridiculous, man.
Huge
Oh,
Jack man, you mean?
huge
Huge
jacked
jacked
man.
man.
Yes, yeah. But that kind of took me to the end of my
Yeah,
Marvel catch-up run.
I see, I see.
What
Yeah.
else have you been checking out?
Oh man. The next one I got is Thank You for Smoking, which I once
Hmm.
again need to. I should in advance while you're talking. I should load these things up so I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
dawdle on you know searching them up myself. But this is from this dude Jason Reitman is the director.
Okay.
Um, and he did this other movie, Up in the Air, which the direction style and the editing
Mm-hmm.
really reminds me of that one, which that one was good, and this one I think is even better. It's about like the uh, spokesman, fucking what's the term? The lobbyist for
Okay. Mm-hmm.
like a cigarette company, and he just has to
Mm.
basically go on like these shows and talk to all these people about like why cigarettes are so awesome.
Good for you. And
Yeah,
yeah, like you should, oh, super, you should smoke.
but
Thank
like
you
the
for
way he
smoking.
does it is so like it's a very smart method he has where instead of proving himself right, he proves the other person wrong.
Right.
And so it's a it's a fairly well written thing, and I think it's based off of a book that's either a biography or autobiography or something. Um, and it's just the like an entertaining time from start to finish, and uh, it's
Great
fun
writing and
and funny.
dialogue.
Yeah,
Hmm.
totally, and good acting in there. And I would definitely recommend this one also.
Very cool. I will add that to the watch
Yes,
list.
sir. Put that shit in there.
After I kind of caught up on all of the Marvel movies, I thought,
Oh man.
why not stick with the superhero genre
Mm.
and finish up the Unbreakable saga from
Ooh.
the one and only M. Night Shyamalan.
Ooh.
So I watched Split
Okay.
and the more recently Glass. Um, and I'd heard great things about Split. When it first came out, people were like, wow, this is a return to form because
Mm-hmm.
M. Night has been missing a lot for a few years now. But I thought Split was really pretty solid
Yeah.
with how like tight and like constrained the movie is. It's like all in a few rooms and like
Mm-hmm.
there's really not much going on. It's almost like a um, what do they call it? Like parlor piece. But I thought all the performances were great. Obviously, James McAvoy, standout.
Mm-hmm.
But the sense of tension was there. It was pretty palpable. I thought the direction was great. I'm not usually. I mean, he's got a style, and
At first, I thought you
sometimes it
said he's got to
works.
stop, and I'm like, yeah,
No, I won't. Hey,
he has a
let
style.
a man
You're
do
right.
his thing. But he does have a style. Sometimes he gets lost in it, and sometimes it works for him. And I
Yeah,
think he did well, kind of balancing everything in Split. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite of his movies.
yeah.
I don't even know if I liked it more than Unbreakable. I think Unbreakable was better.
I love
Um,
Unbreakable, and Split is
Unbreakable was,
probably his
yeah,
most recent good movie,
yeah,
and everything
yeah.
since then has been not so good,
Yeah, it's
in varying
hard to
levels.
hard to hit those heights
Yeah.
when you kind of break in the scene with like four movies that are
Hmm.
classic and
Yeah.
like everyone has sky high expectations from you. Um,
Hmm.
but then finished up the trilogy with Glass, and I can't say I loved it. I didn't think it was terrible, um,
Hmm.
but also it was very messy with what they were trying to do with like them being in the ward and like being forced to like kind of interact with each other
Hmm.
because they're like crazy and there's the evil psychiatrist that is trying to gaslight them into believing they're not special and they're just regular people. Um, it was kind of cool how like twisty that got, but then it just got too messy to like
Hmm.
kind of follow, and the narrative got a little disjointed because of that, I think. Um, yeah, I don't remember much of this movie if I'm not like if I'm gonna be completely
No,
honest.
yeah, that's
There
fair.
wasn't a lot of like uh stakes that I felt. I remember like the climax was like trying to get to the tower and blow it up, but that was never the
Yeah.
plan. It was always fake because, Mr. Glass is a genius and he's got plans within plans. Um,
Yeah, I just
but I,
remember
you
this
know,
one being like really underwhelming in like
yeah,
that
yeah,
aspect, especially. Like,
yeah. I don't know if I hated it, but I
hmm
don't remember much about it.
yeah, I think it had the
But
potential to be really cool because it's like
it
it's
could
such an
have.
unusual like trilogy idea.
Yeah.
You know, it
It's
just
just like
couldn't come together, I guess.
kind of alt heroes.
Yeah,
They're not like
they're not comic book
anti-heroes, but they're
dudes.
like just a step removed from reality.
Yeah,
And so it's a little more in that kind of interesting realm to
it's very
explore.
unique.
I think Unbreakable did that the best, obviously.
Totally.
Um, it's, because I do like Unbreakable a lot now that I'm thinking like back. The the
It's
whole
one of
kind
my
of
favorites.
love and exploration of comics in that, and like I think that's when it was done best.
Hmm.
And it hasn't been the strongest trilogy, but I think I applaud M. Night for doing it. I think
For
it
sure.
turned out relatively well. But that was the
Hmm.
thing. Yeah, that was all for me. So
Okay. Up next on my end, I got Total Recall, which is
mm,
Arnold Schwarzenegger with Paul Verhoeven is the director, dude, and he did RoboCop and Starship Troopers, which are two excellent movies. I do like RoboCop a little bit more than this one,
he
but
also
this one's
directed
just,
another
huh?
movie that he also directed another movie that
Oh,
some people do not love as much. That I will
which
talk
one would
about
that be?
later.
Oh, Showgirls. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I've witnessed that. I've also witnessed Basic Instinct, which is iconic. You need to see that, Peter, if
it's
you
on
haven't
my list.
already.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do like Paul Verhoeven stuff for the most part.
Yeah.
I think he's an interesting director. Still haven't watched Total Recall though.
3 out of 5
So
winners for me is hey, that's all right.
yeah,
And Total Recall is a really good time. It's this dude who, uh, man, he like it's all about the memory like gaining and losing and shit. So he's like, uh, he finds out that there's this memory service thing that could implant memories within him. So he wants to like become a spy dude, but then it turns out he maybe already sort of has them, where he's sort of breaking out and freaking out about these repressed memories that someone else uh, artificially got rid of from him, but he's like calling back to them.
okay,
And so
okay.
the whole movie is basically just like, is it, you know, is his spy shit past real, or is that like a fake thing, type of deal? Because if they did implant the memories directly into them then he would have this like, spy like moment where he's like, oh my god, these people are after me and I have to like go now, and all this stuff. And it's a very fun action movie, and just it's Arnold in 1990. He's still
Hmm.
doing his thing. Uh,
Yeah,
you
his
know,
prime.
yeah, pretty much. And it's just a really cool, really entertaining time. It's got a pretty cool like sci-fi sort of setting. Uh, and yeah, it's just another good recommendation here.
It's been on my list. It's lauded as a classic, and I definitely need to get on that.
Yeah, it
Um,
slaps.
but after all this superhero stuff that I was watching,
Mm.
I thought I'd finally kind of treat myself and watch some movies that I have been on my list for a
Oh, good.
long while. Some of the more highly rated movies,
Hmm.
let's just say, in my watch list. So I checked out Licorice Pizza from the
Okay.
one and only PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson. Um,
Not to be confused with the WS alternate version of
uh,
that guy.
but yeah, I've enjoyed so much of what Paul Thomas Anderson's done,
He's
and
one of the
I'd
best
heard
directors.
Licorice Pizza was good, maybe not his best, and
Hmm.
I feel the same way now that I've watched it. I think it's very solid. I love how he captures the setting of like
Hmm.
I don't even know what town this was specifically, but it's just
Yeah.
California in the 70s, and it's just so vivid, and there's so much energy, and it's a pretty funny movie. I
Hmm.
enjoyed um, the chemistry between the two leads.
Hmm.
Alana Haim, for someone who's like never acted before,
Yeah.
is pretty impressive. Love her music, so glad that she kind of broke it big with Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yeah.
And of course, Philip Seymour Hoffman's son is
Oh, is that
also,
who that is?
yeah, yeah,
I had
yeah,
no
Cooper
idea.
Hoffman. Yeah, nepotism for the win, baby.
Hey,
Um,
your
but
dad
he
was
was
pretty good in some
also
of my other movies. Why don't you come along for this thing?
he was solid in this, and like the strange kind of cameos that appear throughout the movie. It's very much like almost like sketches and vignettes of the time.
Hmm.
Um, Reminds me a bit of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, just in that kind of nostalgic look at a time period. and kind of having fun with it. I don't know if I like it quite as much as Once Upon a Time, but I thought it was a solid movie. Loved the soundtrack. I think that fed into everything as well. Um, I'd say the detractions I had from this movie were just it's a bit aimless, and I get that that's the point.
Right.
But I think it is somewhat hard to follow and stay in like in touch with the the main kind of through line,
Hmm.
which is the romance
Right.
relationship that they have.
No, yeah, I think
Um,
the plot is probably the weakest aspect to it.
yeah,
It's all about that like nostalgia sort of
it's much
feeling
more a
thing.
vibes movie,
Yeah,
which I still enjoyed. Um,
totally.
and what else have you watched?
I went and I sought out the man, the myth, the Lynchian mastermind
Mm,
himself, the guy whose first name is David.
the guy
And
whose first name
he
is David.
he made this movie called Lost Highway
I have
from
not seen it, but I know
1997.
of it. Yes.
And the first 20 or 30 minutes or so is like, okay, whatever, man. It's got that sort of weird, acting that's is it good? Is it not good? I don't know. I think it's
It's
acting though.
it's purposeful, I think. Yeah.
And then 20 to 30 minutes in, something happens, and it's like, oh, of fucking course you did this, you bastard. What the fuck is this? What do you mean? And the movie from there is just such an excellent, like, really great time, and it's so weird. And like, out of all of, I guess, Lynch's stuff that I've seen so far, this I think is the one with the like easiest maybe takeaway from it, because one of
Mm,
the characters in his lines literally says something that just feels so direct that it's hard to ignore. And even like the letterbox, like a lot of the top comments are like, quoting it. And so I feel
mm-hmm.
like a lot of people are sort of getting that same uh
Takeaway.
yeah takeaway from the thing. But even if you don't take away anything from David Lynch's stuff, I think you'll still maybe have a good time. And I certainly did with this one. This one was um, a really just another banger in his catalog of stuff. So
Yeah. You just like slowly chip away at David Lynch's at
oh
his
yeah,
discography.
yeah. Don't hit it all
Um,
at once. That might
no,
destroy your brain.
burn you out. Yeah,
It'll
there's a
your head will
lot.
literally explode. I
There's a
think
whole
maybe.
lot. Yeah. I still have a few things to check out from his.
Yeah.
Um, and that is certainly one.
Hmm.
I love the man. He's one of one,
Hmm.
and I'm glad he's still making shit.
No, yeah,
Uh,
same. How old is this man?
that's a great
He's
question.
probably almost 80 or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe 70 something.
probably like yeah, 70
Born
something. I'd assume.
in 1946. So, yeah.
So yeah, maybe 65, 70. All right. I continued on my streak of watching good movies,
Hmm.
and I finally watched Training Day, which has been on my watch list for a while. Um, directed by Antoine
Oh, yeah,
Fuqua.
that one's cool.
Yeah, it is super solid. I think it's very much propped up by its main actors, the
Yeah,
dynamic duo of Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke. Denzel, man, he is a force in
I
this
know.
movie.
Yeah.
Is just one of, when you think of acting, it's like this is capital A acting. Like, he has such a presence, and just cruises through this movie. Uh, just pulling. He is like the driving force of this entire movie, obviously. And Ethan Hawke does a good job of like kind of balancing it and having that, the almost like the audience's perspective of
Yeah.
like what the fuck is going on. It is insane to like get to the end of the movie and being like, wait, this has all been in one day that the entire movie takes place, and it just takes you all over the town and up and down through
Hmm.
crooked crime, whatever, undercover. What is it? I don't even know. But I think the performances are fantastic, and the writing is equally as good. Um, yeah, I think it's a super solid movie.
Yeah, I agree. People should check that one out. Um, And then the last movie I'm here to discuss tonight is one from a franchise that you covered. I guess we covered collectively in a previous episode, that being Alien. From the one this year, it was Romulus. That
I need to do that as well.
bared witness to.
Hmm.
And it's a little divisive. Initially, the reviews were
definitely
very
is.
positive, and then Red Letter Media came out and they were like, I don't like a lot of it, and then people are like, oh, I also feel that way.
Wait. No, this is a bad
Wait, what did
movie.
I rank
Now
it?
that
8?
you-
Let me switch that real quick before does anybody notices.
Edit.
Yeah, and that's why I always watch movies not upon release, but after Red Letter Media,
After Red
so
Letter
I
Media.
don't have to switch
Exactly.
it.
I don't need to formulate my opinion is already
Yeah, it's already there.
Yes,
like
yes,
I don't need to. No,
It's
but
a bit unfortunate that they rarely ever. I feel like they don't drop a ton of episodes all the time. So
yeah, I mean the Alien Romulus one was what, like maybe 2 or 1.5 weeks, or it was somewhat recently.
they were on
was it-
the ball during the summer when
Okay.
everything was releasing. So no, they
I
had a
don't
hot
know what
streak,
time is.
for sure.
Don't expect that from me. But yeah, so I watched this one, and it's basically just a slasher horror movie set in the Alien universe, which parts of those movies were already fairly like that. This one just leans a little bit more into that, with the whole like them being young people, which is to cater to whatever younger audience to get them into this franchise that they've never heard of. I mean, they may have heard 40-year-olds talk
Yeah,
about
it's
or
a
dead
classic
people.
franchise,
Yeah.
but have they ever watched it?
Right.
Maybe not.
And if this is the entry point to the series, maybe that's not such a bad thing. I didn't like this movie that much. I don't think it's so terrible that it's like the worst thing ever and pisses all over the series. There's the obvious of they reuse a certain character who is a character where the actor behind the character is no longer amongst the living, and they for some reason insist upon CGIing, I think, the dude there, and it feels off, and it should have been recast, or just literally
Have a
any number of
different
things.
android.
It's like it's an android. It's like there could be different models of them. That's fine.
Yeah.
Or just you could get somebody who looks like him, or just have it altogether a different thing. But they insist upon this thing specifically. And there are a couple other things that it borrows from the other Alien movies and stuff. And people online always go and parade around complaining about that, which I don't think too many of them are utilized in bad ways necessarily. They don't necessarily get on my nerves too much because I'm not like that attached to the series to begin with, I guess. And it's been a little bit while since I've watched them, so it's a little bit more difficult for me to like attach like, okay, this moment's from this thing. Like if it was like that and like every scene was I could like see that it was stolen from a scene in a different movie in the franchise, that would that honestly would really bother me. But since I'm not like looking at it from that perspective, I was able to have a slightly more enjoyable time than a terrible one. And yeah, the story that happens is fine. Again, it's just sort of a horror slasher thing. The sets are it's very dark in a visual way, because they're in space and they're on a ship that's kind of shitty and the lights don't work very well. But like when it is lit, the sets are quite nice. It does that sort of like when movies from the 80s would do like future technology, but their future technology
kind of
was
retro
like
analog.
yeah. And so
futuristic,
I think it's cool sometimes when the modern day, you see this more with, I guess, sequels to these types of things, like this one, where it uses that, what would have been considered advanced technology 40 years ago. They're using that in this to fit, within universe to that kind of stuff. And whatever props and set pieces that utilize that, I think are quite nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Considering even the original director with Prometheus and Covenant did not feel
Yeah, he
that
was just
he
like,
needed to do the same
future
thing.
is now. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
holograms. Everything. It's all hologram.
But but yeah, and I don't know. Some people hate it, some people like it. I thought it was okay, or a little bit less than that. Some of it does bother me because just slashers in general sort of bother me because it's like a bunch of stupid people going around and like
It's hard to
dying
make like
and
a
stuff.
particularly good
And
one.
there's some of that in this one, but it's far from the worst thing I've ever seen. And if you like this movie, that's cool. Whatever. If you hate it, that's I hope our listeners can get along regardless of their feelings about it and have a reasonable discussion about it in the comments. Maybe if we got
Course.
any of those people.
I have to watch Alien Romulus simply
Yeah.
because I must complete the franchise.
Oh God.
It's the only one that I have yet to watch.
That's how they get us, Peter. The pitfall
They
of you
do.
must watch all of them.
Exactly. I'm fully bought in. Um,
Yeah, they
which
got
is
me there.
why I've watched a lot of like movies. I I'll cover briefly. I'll kind of like bullet time this one. All
Mm.
right. So I checked out the sequel to Beetlejuice,
Oh, yeah.
whatever, and the new one from. Why am I
Tim
playing?
Burton, bro.
Tim Burton. No, bro. Yeah. And I thought it was okay. I thought it was decent.
Hmm.
I thought it was better than I was expecting for a comeback.
Hmm.
It's still got that kind of charm from the first one, that weird, wacky charm, but solid. Good performances still. Well, Michael Keaton is still great. He's
Okay.
such a wonderful actor,
Yeah, nice.
and he kind of carries the movie for the most part. I also watched Borderlands. Uh, ass.
Did you ever play
what
the
else is
game,
there
or
to say?
did you just?
I love the games.
Okay.
Except that I love playing the games.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
You don't like
two
listening to
it,
them.
two is the best in terms of story,
Okay.
but it's really pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Two is not forgettable because they've got Handsome Jack and it's solid. But you're not playing those games really for the narrative. You're playing it for the guns
Hmm.
and the gameplay. Um, so I don't know why they would think to make a movie about it, but they did, and it's bad. It's not even like one of the worst movies I've ever seen,
Uh-huh.
but it's just makes it all the more forgettable for that. So will I ever remember anything that happened in that movie? Probably not, except for the fact that they got a ridiculous amount of like top tier actors,
Jack
and they just
Black.
did not do anything with it. Like, why is Kate Blanchett in there?
No, I
I don't
know.
know.
It doesn't make sense.
But after that, I watched all of the Fantastic Four movies, including the one,
Ooh.
Fan Four Stick.
Did you watch
Um,
the super old one from like the
I watched.
60s or whatever that was?
I didn't. I did not. I only watched the one, Jessica Alba,
Yeah, I think I've only
in the
seen
early
those also.
2000s. Those ones are not good.
They're very
They're pretty
cheesy.
bad. They're kind of funny. Yeah, they're like very kind of corny and cheesy. They remind me of like Spider-Man type of humor, like the Sam Raimi ones, but like worse, just like not as good at all. And Fan Four Stick is obviously very, very bad. Not as bad as I was expecting, which is crazy because it is still like really, really bad. But everyone's like, "Oh yeah, it's the worst movie I've ever seen."
Yeah.
It's just it kind of incompetent and really boring. And man, in all of these movies, the fact that they haven't gotten Doctor Doom right once, they've just like chosen the absolute worst thing they could possibly do with the character is shocking. And I am very interested to see if they can somehow
Oh
remedy
yeah,
that
they'll
in the
definitely
MCU.
they'll definitely improve with the new casting
Yeah.
choice of that man.
Yeah. But I would say Fantastic Fours, all pretty bad.
Yeah, no, they haven't.
Did not enjoy
There's not a
those.
single good one, despite the
No.
however many
It-
iterations of them they've done.
Yeah, and how many great comic book runs there are. Like, just fucking read the comics and like retell a story. It can't be that hard. Why are you trying to do
It's
something
already
new
storyboarded
when
for
you are
you.
making every single wrong decision? But yeah, I also watched The Substance, which is one I kind of want to talk to about more.
Okay.
Because that was kind of, getting into the Halloween spirit. Excellent movie. It's gotten a bunch of buzz, and I think rightly so. I don't think it's quite at the top of my year, just because I still enjoyed Challenges and Dune
Yeah.
better, but it's probably third under those.
Okay.
Really fun, super vibrant, like an audacious amount of sauce in this filmmaking.
Okay.
Just like the the soundtrack is excellent. It carries that energy and the vibrancy with a ton of like power. But like obviously the movie has a ton to say about you know, image, aging, beauty standards, you know, misogyny, what it is to be a woman, all of that, and it does so in a way that is artistic and is not blunt and in your face, and you can tell that there's a lot to kind of read into here, but you don't have to because it's just a fun time. The gore is great. The kind of the kind of thrills are fantastic. Performances are also it's almost reminds me of like, I don't know, like Under the Skin mixed with fucking, I don't know, something like completely out there, just like bombastic. It has the same kind of vibes as like an Under the Skin, but it's just a lot more frenetic and energetic, and I think it's a very, very solid movie that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, cool. I'll have to check that
probably,
one out.
Probably one of my favorite horror movies of all time now, because
Oh, wow.
I'm not usually not the biggest fan of horror, but this is a very, very solid one. And then, like I mentioned, I watched Showgirls because I kind of wanted to go in that same lane of female, you know,
Go into the mindset of a woman
and like exploitation. But you know, I can't say Showgirls handled the same themes as The Substance as well. I know it's insane how divisive Showgirls is.
Yeah, it's weird.
Just like every single rating across the board is like
it's got a very even distribution. Rated. It's very unusual in that way.
Some people absolutely love it, and what it like how it is supposedly like the reason why you feel this way watching this movie is purposeful. But I don't even know if it's that deep. Like, I think people are reading into it. The movie is just not that interesting. I hated the main character. She's not enjoyable or easy to root for.
None of them are really likable. Val McLaughlin, dude. I saw that movie before I saw any of the David Lynch things.
The Twin Peaks
with him in it. So that was like the first time I was seeing him. Like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it's a very strange movie. Obviously the sets and the kind of it's just, people are like, oh, it's camp. It's supposed to be, it's so weird, and like all the dancing scenes and like when the main character is like giving lap dance or like having sex in the pool and she's like gyrating like she's being possessed. It's like, it's camp. It's like, sure, but also maybe it's just like bad and like you could do something better with camp. I didn't really enjoy the movie. I think if we're trying to, I guess I'm going at it under like it's supposed to have the same themes or similar themes as The Substance, which I just watched the day before, and I'm trying to go into it.
That was your mistake, watching it
in like a kind of similar
lens.
But man, it's not going about it in any of the same direction, and I don't think it works as well because of that. Despite how kind of over the top both those movies are, they go in very, very separate directions. And I can't say I really enjoyed Showgirls as much for it.
I did not enjoy it, but I would recommend it because it's so unique.
And
if you want to get into movies, it's a fairly common talking point, I guess.
Yes,
comes up now and again.
Yeah, everyone has their own opinion on it, and it is something that they will stand by. I don't know. I feel like people are very stubborn in their first watch of Showgirls, and it sticks with you. But yeah, after that, I was just going through all of my James Bonds. I finally decided to tackle this monster 20 or 30.
This thing took me forever to get
series.
Through. Because I did one a week.
An entire month.
So it took like half a year.
Oh, you did once a week. Okay.
So it took like half a year for me.
Every day, and it's taking me like a whole month.
Oh, God.
Straight through.
Oh, God, Peter.
Yeah, and it's kind of insane, but I would say that the majority of them are not good. Like the majority of them
No,
are kind of bad. Like
no.
it's kind of funny, just how silly they are, which I wasn't really expecting because up until now I'd only watched the Daniel Craig
Yeah.
ones.
The old ones are a
Um,
lot more goofier. They lean into
the
that
old ones are incredibly
comedy.
goofy, very silly, and obviously trying to be so. But still, they're like the humor is obviously very dated. Uh,
100%.
James Bond is like he's a weird character, just because of how like I don't know like predatory he is towards
Oh,
women. It's like
100%.
it's played off as a joke, and to some extent, some of the situations are very funny. But it's just because of how consistent it is. I don't. Maybe it's me watching them back to back to back to back for 3 weeks straight, every day, and it's wearing on me. Okay,
No, I don't blame
maybe
you.
it's me. Maybe
Nobody's
it's
blaming
me.
you here. It's not
But
you.
if
It's
you
not.
are making a movie a year essentially, or a year every other, or a movie every other year for decades, and it's the same damn movie,
Yeah.
how did people let this get away with it? Like why? This is the original franchise where you got the same movie over and over again,
Yeah.
and
I mean, the character
it's
is
like it's
just,
fun
yeah, he's
because
just like the
it's James
male
Bond.
fantasy. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah, he's
just,
going
people are
to,
going to watch that.
he's flying around the world. He's being a super agent. He gets the cool gadgets, the cool cars, and
He
he
gets a
sleeps with
new
every
harem
single
of
woman
women
that you
each
could think
movie.
of. Yeah, and it's yeah, ha ha ha, so super funny.
Yeah.
I wish the movies were better. Some of them are very funny, and some have particularly good stunts that kind of stand out. But usually those are only for set pieces, whereas the rest of the movie
Yeah.
is pretty boring
It's
and
like a lot of action scenes.
investigative with
Yeah.
air quotes work, where he kind of goes place to place. Usually ends up getting captured 2 or 3 times,
And then the dude just like walks
sleeping
away.
his way or shooting his way out. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, seducing his way.
I've
Yeah.
started to come around where he gets captured and like
Okay.
placed
You
into like
just
a
accept it
terrible
by this
place.
point, 'cause
Yeah,
what else can you
yeah.
do?
It's
It's
just
just
be
like,
like,
okay, this
okay,
is happening
you're
for the
gonna
15th
leave
time.
him in the middle of a voodoo swamp to get eaten by
But-
alligators
yeah.
while you have a room full of armed soldiers nearby,
Which
and
that
he
one's
just
one of
gets
the better
away.
scenes, probably.
It's kind of funny. That was not one of my favorite movies.
Which one was that one
When
again?
was that? That was the Live and Let Die, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that one
Yeah.
a decent amount.
I did not. I thought that one in
A
particular.
decent amount,
where
as in I
it's
thought it was
obviously
okay.
that's
I
obviously
don't
the
think
one
more.
where it deals with like black people
Yeah.
essentially, and like
New Orleans.
yes, New Orleans, and all of the villains are black. Every
Hmm.
person in the movie that is black is bad and evil. And people are, I was like looking at the reviews, and it's like, oh, it's camp. It's like, it's
Sure.
funny, and this is a good thing.
Yeah, it
because
could very
it's, like,
easily
it's,
be taken
it's
in a
black
bad way if you like
exploitation
look
and
at it
food
like that.
exploitation.
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, but also, man, I don't know. I'd rather watch Black Dynamite for something like that, not James Bond,
Oh, yeah.
especially when like, I don't know. I think the filmmaking is a bit too voyeuristic and exploitative to fit into that black exploitation here. But
No,
that's
yeah,
just my
100%.
opinion,
That's
obviously.
not. Yeah.
And that's just how I feel about James Bond in general. He's a weird character to have stayed in the cultural zeitgeist for so long.
Yeah. He's changed a
but
lot. Like the Daniel Craig ones
he
are,
has
are
changed,
quite
yes.
different because those are a lot more serious.
Yeah, and
it's
I'm
like,
excited to make my way to the Pierce Brosnan ones because I still have not. I've been only watching for 2 weeks, 3 weeks straight now,
yeah.
and
What's
I
his
am
name?
still on the Roger Moore ones,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which is it's
I like
wild.
yeah. The Pierce Brosnan ones, some of them are decent, but yeah.
Yeah, I just want to see how each era changes. I'm surprised because Sean Connery and the Roger Moore ones are so similar. I'm sure there are people who love
And
these
did you also
movies
hit the
and have
ones?
watched them
Are
all.
there two dudes between them for like one or two movies,
There's
or is that
one
between
movie,
the next dude?
yeah. Honor Majesty Secret Service. You get the one-off. George Lazenby. I thought that was decent.
Yeah, it was okay.
Um,
That was the one where his wife died. Spoilers.
yeah,
It was-
exactly, and that was like the most interesting part in like any
Yeah.
Bond movie
but
I've
also like,
watched.
but
Except
also
for
like I
the
didn't
new
believe
ones.
that like I wasn't invested in that for a second.
No,
'Cause it's
I
like,
was
oh,
not.
so for the next
Exactly.
movie he could just have
Yeah.
another harem again. It's like, okay,
Yep.
like that's
Yep.
the real
Yep.
reason why she died. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. And it was never mentioned
It
again.
was.
Like,
I do like how it's almost the introduction to the idea that James Bond can't be happy. And he can never really settle down.
I guess that's his,
which has
yeah,
been carried on throughout the years now.
sure.
And it was kind of the introduction of that
Okay.
that plot point in his character. But other than that, I mean, I'm gonna finish them.
Are you like
How
halfway
many-
through or something or what?
I am, because I've already watched all the
Daniel
Daniel
Craig
Craig ones.
Yeah.
I'm probably like 3/4 to
Mhm.
2/3
Yeah,
to
yeah.
3/4 of the way through.
Because Pierce
I'd like
Brosnan is the
5 more.
last
Yeah,
one between them, right?
hmm
So, yeah.
Um, maybe I'll rewatch the Daniel Craig ones. I mean, Casino Royale. I do remember really enjoying. I think that one was
Yeah, that
fun
one's decent.
and like that was my first James Bond, and that was like
Sure.
he is my James Bond now, just because he's my first. But I'd be interested to see how it stacks up after watching all of the other ones.
Oh,
Might have
man.
to refresh mine. Yeah. But that brings me to the end of basically all the movies I've been watching.
Wow.
It was a lot,
Yep.
and I know you were watching a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I was watching just as many as you. I just
Yes.
condensed
Yeah.
them, and also I'm not doing the franchise thing because I've already way past that mostly.
Yeah, it's a little harder to talk about 30 individual movies as opposed to like 5 to 6 different
Yeah, if you could group them
franchises.
together like that, yeah, why
Yeah.
not? But yeah, that'll do it for the movie section, which is now on to TV, which I have 5 items. Peter, do you have anything?
I have not watched any TV, and I've been meaning to.
My
I kind
time
of want
is
to check out The Penguin,
the
but
Penguin.
other than that, yeah,
As in the-
HBO's The Penguin. I've heard very good things about it, but other than that, nothing has really.
As in the
been sticking
Batman
out to me.
villain, or just some other thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it
With
does it
Colin
connect
Farrell.
to the
It's the
something-
Robert Pattinson movie.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It's
Colin Farrell? Yeah.
Colin
Okay.
Farrell, which is insane, just because he he does not look like
I
that
know.
in the movie.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I might
he's
watch
just as
that.
good.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I have a little update for one from last time we talked. I had thought that the anime season of the summer or whatever finished by the last time we spoke, and I thought I had watched all of the episodes for those shows, specifically Oshi No Ko. But it turns out I missed 2 very crucial episodes that completely change the way
Really?
I see
Wow.
this show, Peter. You remember last time where I was, almost throwing compliments at the protagonist, where he's this dude in, I guess, his 40s maybe, where he was like 30 something as a doctor. He died. He's reincarnated, and now he is 16 again, I think. So he's at that age, and I was complimenting him and the author for not making him do weird things like, he's in the entertainment industry. It would be easy for him to, pick up chicks and girls his supposed age, which would be 16. But it would be mentally a 40-something-year-old dude with a 16-year-old. And that's a little bit weird. And
It's a little
I
weird.
complimented the story for not doing that.
For not doing that.
And the episode
Because I
where
remember
I
you
come
weren't
back
very
to,
positive on it even then. So I thought when you said they switched everything's around. Oh, okay.
this is
okay.
the first time this is happening, Peter, where it's like,
Yes.
as soon as after we stop recording and I go back and I'm editing those videos, I'm like, oh God, I had this take at this time, but now I disagree with that, and I just have to deal with that until people, I guess, watch this episode maybe. And so yeah, he at like the point where I stopped, it was like, okay, he is ending this fake relationship with her, but then in like the next episode, it picks it up again, specifically in a way where it's a real one. And it's like,
yeah,
why?
yeah.
You were
Of
you were
course.
like almost doing something maybe decent there, person writing this thing, but you just had to be fucking weird about it. And in Japan, the age of consent is a little bit different than in America. So this is me looking into it, but like really that age should be probably a little bit older. Like, come on,
It's,
the country of Japan, get it together. And so there was that, and that's a pretty big strike in the show there.
Hate to see it. I mean, that's literally, it is something that if you see it in an
It's
anime
annoying.
or any show, but I mean, it's primarily
It's more
anime.
common in the probably
It's
anime.
just it's the worst trope, and
Yeah.
it definitely it immediately brings down points.
Yeah,
Just
like I
it
mean
is-
the
I
age
just-
difference thing that exists
Yeah.
in Hollywood movies 100% too. In
Without a
school,
doubt.
I did
Yeah.
for my statistics project for the final. I did like a little the thing about the like showing off the age differences in the Hollywood movie relationship things, which was fun. So that's one thing that Oshi No Ko does bad in its final 2 episodes. One of the other things that it does bad, Peter,
Another strike,
is so there was the sister character, right, where he's
right?
he is this doctor and he has this patient who dies of like cancer or something, and she was maybe like 8 years old or something when she died, and she's reincarnated as the dude's sibling at the same time as him, so they're twins, and it was revealed that she had a crush on the doctor when she was his patient, and she wasn't aware that the doctor reincarnated as her brother. But I the face you're making right now is priceless, Peter. I wish the audience could see
it's
it.
the spice, man. It's the spice. You don't understand. It sells.
And I think the doctor dude, when he was reincarnated, he was able to recognize at some point that she was the patient because of a couple like
Sure.
things she said or like certain behaviors that like reminded it.
Callbacks.
Yeah, it was like he like realized that, but she didn't. And I think now is the point where she is going to find out. It's sort of like hinting at that, where she's like realizing that maybe her brother is the doctor that she's still sort of has a crush on all these years later. It's like you have a whole new
course.
fucking life
Right.
that you're living. Get
Right,
over
you're
it.
reincarnated.
Jesus Christ.
You are like
Move
a-
on.
What the hell?
And so yeah, and there was that, and so that's 2 strikes, and then the third one is the sister asked the girl that the dude is dating, and she asked her preference on men, and if she was okay with dudes older or whatever, or like the preference of whatever she said. She's like, I'm into older guys, and it's like, oh fuck.
Of
my
course,
God.
of course.
God.
Hey, call it our Western sensibilities. But, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Some people love it. Obviously, Oshi No Ko is like I feel like people were really liking it. Like it's
No, people love
gotten
this
pretty
movie,
highly-
Peter.
yeah, like,
Fucking TV
they-
show. I mean,
they love it.
They love this
Right?
show. They love the show,
And-
Peter. And it's why? Like you have to be either a bot
Maybe
or
you're
like
just a
14
prude.
years old. or
Maybe
something.
you're a prude. Yeah, no, it's
It's like, but
But
it's animated well and it's flashy and it has drama or whatever. And the premise is still there, but they only tackle it like 1 or 2 episodes
every
per
once
season.
in a while.
So
yeah.
it's like, so that was a letdown, and that pulled the, the show that I already didn't like that much. I just pulled it down that much more. I'll still watch the next season though. You could count on that. I'm here for it now. I'm diving in the trash in the
They
in the
earned
fucking
a
dumpster
hate
pile.
watcher.
I'm here. I'm swimming around. I'm floating around. I'm having a
Yep. Deep diving.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there was that, and I also finished the fucking Russian thing. I think I had 2 episodes on that. I don't remember what it wasn't really anything important.
More of the same.
Yeah, it was just the same shit. But recently, in this new season of anime, I checked out 3 new ones. One of them was Dan to Dan, which I'm sure you've probably heard of, maybe? Question mark? Okay.
I have. I've read it.
Oh, okay.
So
really?
I had high expectations.
Is it
I have
finished?
not watched it.
Is it finished or is
No,
it
it's
the
an
manga?
ongoing manga,
Okay.
and I'm following it because I really enjoy the manga.
Yeah.
So I had high expectations when the anime was announced. And I was telling all my friends, we were like, "Hey, you might want to check this out."
It's like,
I
boy,
heard
I've
it's
already
gonna be
been
good.
through this.
I hope.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, it seems like it's been pretty strong.
Yeah, it's the action shonen thing of the season, which there has to be, I guess, one of them at least
One itself
per season, and this is the one that's popping off the most, and the animation quality is there, and it's quite nice,
good.
and it's maybe half action or a little bit less, and either half or slightly more gag manga type of thing, where
Yeah,
it's more
yeah.
that comedy angle with a little bit of I guess romance
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Yep,
thrown in
yep.
there. And like I don't know, I don't so far particularly find the gags in question to be funny. Some of them are sometimes, but they like border
Mm-hmm.
on like this, you know, like the subject
I
matter
get
of the
that. Oh
jokes are
yeah.
like this dude's balls because he's being possessed by the
There's
Turbo
a lot of
Granny,
that.
who's
Yeah.
a the spirit thing, which I recently
Hmm.
found out the lore of her from playing Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, where she was a new
Yeah.
demon in that game. So I would
Hmm.
like came into this like, oh, I know who that is. I know who that is type of
I
thing. So I'm
know
such
all
a
the
big weeb.
yeah,
Um,
the yokais. I know the ghosts,
yeah,
the
exactly.
folklore. Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of the jokes are about the dude's balls, and it's like the sexy grandma lady who looks like she's 25 or 30 or something,
Hmm.
but she's actually 60, maybe. I don't know. She's like, I have to inspect your balls, kid, and the dude's like, no, please don't do it. And it's like,
No.
okay,
Hmm. I would. That's interesting because when I'm reading it as a manga, those
hmm
jokes like fly by. They're
well, yeah,
like a
because
panel,
you're
and
reading it,
so
so you could
you're
just
not
like
really like,
immediately
yeah.
pass on. You don't have to
It's not
linger on
like
it, but
gonna
it's
get
different when it's
beaten over
animated.
your head. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I get it.
yeah,
It's funny, sure. Uh-huh.
and I think
So
that's
I do have to watch it and see how it
yeah.
holds up.
But I agree with, or I understand why you would have that takeaway though, because I feel that way very much. Will reading books and
Hmm.
manga also like just certain like problems pass me over much easier. But for
Yeah.
while watching something, you like since time is not controlled by you, that might mean my mind is able to do certain things while also witnessing the thing, and I'll think
Hmm.
about what's going on as it's maybe going on. Meanwhile in a
Yeah.
book, that's not really going to happen unless I like
Hmm.
force myself to stop and think about certain things. So I'd
Sure.
say that's attributed to that difference there. And yeah, I'm not like super emotionally connected to this thing. It's well animated, but the fights themselves, which ones do happen, I'm not like I need that emotional like character side of things of like why they're fighting,
Hmm.
what's their motivation for doing so, what will it accomplish, what's the enemy doing, what are they trying to do. And yeah, it's funny sometimes, not so funny sometimes also. And the main dynamic between the two main characters is mostly good. Again, it's just every once in a while there's some like, okay, well they're saying this now type of
Yeah,
thing.
it's
Anime,
they do have a very kind of they're both dumbasses.
yeah, which is fun
Everyone's kind of
mostly.
a dumbass in that show, so it's kind of you can take things tongue in cheek. But
Yeah.
yeah, what else have you been watching?
Oh boy. So the other one I was watching, which I actually surprisingly like quite a bit more, is Ranma One Half, which is a remake of Ranma which was an anime from the 1980s or 90s or something. And
Is
it
that
has
a
the most
fighting?
Ranma,
Oh,
Ranma,
okay.
and
Yes,
it has
I
a
have
most
seen that.
interesting premise where there's this dude who runs a dojo and he has three daughters and he has to, because it's Japan, still does the arranged marriage thing for like the
Hmm.
sake of businesses or whatever. He has to secure his daughters a husband so his dojo could be good uh,
Of
if when he
course.
retires or dies, because a woman can't run the business. That's not a thing that they could do.
No, no
So
chance.
he eventually finds like uh, it was like some old friend of his or something had a son, so they're like pairing them up, and this father and the son are two martial artist dudes who recently went and trained in China. Specifically, they trained in a part of China where there was some like hot springs area training ground thing, where
Hmm.
there are a bunch of ponds of water, and if you fall into one, you whenever you beyond that point touch cold water, you transform into something. And so,
Anything?
and anything, it seems,
Okay,
any living
okay.
thing so far. And so the father uh, turns into a panda when he touches cold water, and
Hmm.
the son turns into a girl when he touches cold water. And this happens anytime they, run into these things, which is a surprising amount. You would be amazed how many times they come into contact with cold
I
water.
believe it. I do believe it.
And
Hmm.
it's such a dumb premise, Peter, but they honestly really make it work. And it's like I think it's a bit funnier than Don to Don, at least
Hmm.
for whatever comedy it, I guess just vibes with me better or something. And yeah, it's funny, and like the it's fairly over the top. Like the entire school that she attends, that he eventually also attends, is like there's this dude who has a crush on her, and every day he challenges her to a battle because like the whole school just like fights each other, and like there's this
Sure,
like weird
of
like
course.
power system involved also. And like a funny sort of love triangle forms between the three of them because the dude is in love with the like dude who fights everybody at school is in love with the
Hmm.
girl, but then he sees the other dude as a rival because it's like, oh, they're getting engaged, but they also, the girl and the dude, they don't like each other also. That's like, because that's got to be the way it is,
Classic
and it's
arranged
yeah,
marriage,
and
yeah.
it's still, that aspect to it, I think, is it's a good example of it. It's not like, oh god, I'm seeing this again. It's like, oh, okay, this is, it's
Mm.
not a bad version of it. And the dude who fights people sees the other dude as a rival, but when he transforms into a girl, he's like, oh my god, she can fight so good, and I love her so much. And the dude who becomes the girl just kind of has to deal with it, and it's, it's fun. And recently there was a character who also went to the same like Chinese training ground thing and also transforms into a thing.
Oh yeah,
And like
because the
the
water.
the hilarity that ensues sometimes is honestly quite enjoyable. So I was surprised to find myself liking this one. I don't really know why I watched it initially. I was just like, I knew about
Just
the
had to
original
check it
series and
out.
sort of meant to watch it. So yeah, and the way they modernize its visuals, it's honestly really nice looking. Like the art style, the way they fix it up, it looks very clean and nice. So
Very
yeah,
cool.
so that was that one, and then the third one I checked out from this season, Peter, was Uzumaki, which is the
Ah, yes,
adaptation of
yes.
a classic from Junji Ito, who's this very very famous horror mangaka, and he is
Mhm.
known for creating very disturbing images formed from very weird and out there horror concepts. And I had read Uzumaki along with a couple of other of his things, and Uzumaki is pretty cool as a manga.
Yeah, it's a classic.
And I remember the trailer for this releasing at maybe a couple of years ago. It's been delayed a lot, this anime,
It
but I
has.
remember feeling fairly hyped for the trailers because the Junji Ito's work has a very bad track record of being adapted. Like, just no one can do it right, like ever. Like,
Hmm.
there's been a couple of other things. I haven't watched any of their adaptations. I've only just heard sort of about them. So I was excited to get to this one, and you jump into episode one, and it's like uh, everything is like intrinsically detailed. Like everything is moving at all times. Like it's like that what the fuck, the motion capture. They all the
Hmm.
people are moving around in that way. Like the like every piece of like their hair is moving with the wind, and like the wind is like stylized in such a like visual way, and like the way like the water moves in the village and stuff. Um, and it's like it's just, it literally feels like, because it's still in black and white also, it's not like colored up like most anime adaptations are. They stick to just the black and white, which I think overall does fit like the sort of like the weird dreadful tone of the whole thing. um and Uzumaki's definitely that. It's weird and dreadful and creepy, really creepy. um
Without
and
a doubt,
that's
yeah.
and that's the first episode. And then it takes a little bit of a dive. Well, I said a little bit. It takes a pretty massive dive where
That's what
the
I've heard.
all of the sudden things are very still. There's not a whole lot of movement with the animation, and what animation does remain, it's like the worst, like most
Choppiest. Yeah.
unrealistic fucking movements I've ever seen. Or just like there was one scene where somebody was falling, and it literally just felt like somebody just like took up that image of the person and just like dragged them down with their mouse, like while recording their screen or
Slideshow
something.
animation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, what the fuck is happening? And apparently,
Mm.
the production of it got all fucked up because the main director doing it took way too long because they were trying to
Hmm.
put in all this detail into the first episode, and then they made that, and the producers or whatever is like, this is going to take 8 billion years, which honestly it was probably. So they got
Hmm.
rid of that dude, and the way they sort of dealt with it from there was they outsourced it to other animation studios, and those people who outsourced it to other animation studios, and it just like went into a
Fell
dog
apart.
pile of like
Yeah.
people who don't care and probably aren't that great at what they're doing compared to the industry standards of I guess the top anime of each year,
Mm.
each season. And yeah, it's just kind of disappointing, honestly. I don't think it's the worst thing ever, because they still are able to like some of the times recreate that like sort of weird imagery going on, but it's like it's the bad animations on top of like just really bad pacing also. Like everything
Mm.
moves so quickly. You could like barely like digest anything, and like the
How many
stuff is
episodes
slightly
is
out
it?
of order. Yeah, what? Oh, it's only 6 or 5 episodes rather than the
Yeah,
full
which is
13. But they're
insane.
slightly longer also. They're like closer to 30
Okay.
minutes, so it's like
That's not
almost
much longer.
yeah. Yeah, it's like yeah. You could probably because the it's pretty long, Uzumaki. It's like multiple
Yeah,
volumes, so you could
exactly.
definitely like get it out in a full season,
A
maybe
full
even a bit
season without a
longer.
doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read Uzumaki? I should have asked you that.
Yes, yes. It's a great. I'm a fan
It's a classic.
of Junji Ito. Obviously, his art style is fantastic,
Oh yeah,
and I everything I've heard about the show is just
yeah.
like you get like the first what episode or 2 episodes are
It's
like
just that first one. That's
exact
all they
what
give
you
you. It's
want.
just that first
Okay,
one.
so it's just the first one. The first 20 minutes, 30 minutes
Yeah.
is like this is what
Damn,
it could have been.
this is
This
amazing.
looks really, really
I can't
impressive.
believe
Like,
this.
wow,
Yeah,
they actually did it.
I know.
And then they're just like,
It's so
yeah,
sad.
actually, no, we're not going to do that. Instead, we will have you force it out prematurely with an incredible amount of outsourced work so
Yeah,
that no one knows the process anymore.
yeah.
And then we just shunt it out into streaming and see
Hmm.
what people think.
Yeah. It was an unfortunate one, but like one of the maybe more remarkable things about it, Peter, is that a certain person was involved in this project, a certain person who you brought about in the music
Mm,
section of a previous video of ours, and that was Colin Stetson handled the
yes.
soundtrack for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you listened to
I have not listened to it,
it?
but I think he fits well.
Yeah,
Because obviously, I assume they knew him from the Hereditary soundtrack, which is kind of where he got
like a breakout sort of.
a breakout, yeah, to some extent, where he wasn't just known for in the music sphere.
Hmm.
He started doing more soundtrack stuff.
Yeah.
He also did work on the Red Dead 2 soundtrack.
Oh, did he?
So he's done,
For a
he's
couple of
kind of
songs or for how
done a
many?
bunch of different, I think he
Not
like
the
was
whole
in
thing.
charge of the,
Oh, okay.
he might have been.
Really? Like the
Yeah,
director or something, or composer, whatever.
yeah. I don't
That's
know if
cool.
he did everything, but he has the album on his,
On Spotify.
or I think he appears on it. Is yeah,
Red Dead songs
but
are on Spotify.
they are
I didn't know that.
from what I remember. But yeah, he does a lot of soundtracks now, and
Hmm.
I saw that he got the thing. Um,
Yeah, it's probably good. I don't remember much from it, but it probably fit whatever
yeah,
was going on.
yeah.
I was a little bit more fixated on some of the other things going on, which was the weird pacing and the not so great animation.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's kind of a miss there, but people should check out the manga because it's quite nice.
It is.
And then the last show I started watching, and I'm still currently going through, is not an anime because fuck those. Instead, I'm looking at something a bit Western, someone
Mm.
maybe focusing in on people a little bit more 3D and real, and that show is Lost, Peter,
Ah,
uh,
you're starting it.
which I feel like maybe you
Okay.
should check out because it's genuinely very good so far. From my
Exactly.
understanding, it's one of those that's like, it's kind of a banger, and then the last maybe episode or string of episodes, it's like, what the hell do you mean? What happened or something? Or
Yeah.
people don't like it for whatever reason, and I want to get to the bottom of that because I love investigating that for myself, and I love coming to
Mhm.
my own conclusions uh, about various shows and other forms of media, despite what other people might say. I'm gonna discover it myself.
For how popular the show is and how like culturally relevant it was, I haven't really heard much about it besides like the overall like
Yeah,
reception
people don't
to
talk about it
mostly the
anymore.
ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, people do not talk about it. So I should watch it, and I
We
don't
could
think
bring
I'd
it
be
back.
spoiled
We
at
could bring
all.
it back into the
Yeah,
common, like
bring it back.
yeah, and like every episode so far has been like really solid. There's been some like ups and downs on like I guess like the exact quality of the writing, but it's like overall remained very good. And each episode is like it just draws you in so well, and it's like there's so much drama, and like each character always has like different things going on in various episodes. And like there's like a really good horror and sort of supernatural weird shit happening factor to it, that is really well balanced along with the drama. And
Hmm.
it's on occasion funny. Obviously, that's not the focus, but when it needs to be, it can offer some of that. And yeah, I just watch it every night, and it's like I'm still only on season one. Also, I'm only
Hmm.
like maybe most of the way through it or halfway through it or something. But it's a fairly long show. It's like 6 seasons. Each season has like 20 or more episodes or some shit. I guess I could check right now how goddamn big it is. Um, but yeah, like the acting all around is pretty good. Okay, I'm almost wait. Oh no, I'm almost halfway through the season. There's like 25
Hmm.
episodes per season out of six of these things. Um, so yeah, it's fairly long. But each episode they're not like an hour. They're more like that 40-minute thing because it was made for TV to play during an hour chunk with commercials in between. And yeah, I would recommend this one, and I'll probably have more to say about it by next time because I'm sure maybe my opinion on it will change for one way or the other as just more of the show happens. Because I'm still fairly early on into it, but I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing so far, and it's a good fresh of breath air. From the previous anime shits I've been watching, I'm like I need to get away from this
Yeah,
this anime
that's
slope.
good. And there's absolutely no possible chance that things ever
I
turn around for
don't
the
think a
show.
45-year-old is going to start dating a 16-year-old in law. Something's telling me. I don't think
Yeah,
that's going to
yeah.
happen,
No.
but we'll see.
Maybe maybe they'll drop the ball in some other
Oh,
ways.
hell no. All right. That's all I got for TV shows, though. So we can move on
All
to
right.
the video games,
Video games,
which
yes.
I
And
have.
I have a lot.
I have six of
I've been
these.
gaming. I've been
I've been
gaming a
gaming
lot
also.
too,
I have
so
six. How many do you
yeah.
have?
All right, all right. Um, six round six as well. So
Okay.
yeah,
All right. Well, you get started because people have been, listening to me talk for way too long, too.
sure.
They need to
All
hear
right.
you again.
So first game I will talk about, it'll can be a little briefer, is a game called Neon White.
Oh, yeah.
Um, the first time I heard about it was, a video game donkey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
YouTube legend, had
Hmm.
made a pretty glowing review for the game, and I don't remember why exactly. I don't think it popped up on my recommended again, but oh, it was because I guess this kind of bleeds into music
Ooh.
recommendation. Machine Girl, who did the soundtrack for Neon White, um, dropped a new album,
Oh, okay.
and I listened to the new album, and I
And
was
that
like, oh
reminded you of
wait,
this.
well, because when the game came out, I listened to the album that they made, the soundtrack that they made for it, and I
Uh
really liked it, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll check out this game one day, and
huh.
then like 2 years, 3 years pass, and
Hey,
I'm like,
now we're here.
oh, remember this album, now I will check it out, and it's a great game.
Is it that card
It's a
platformer thing?
Yes, it's a first person kind of speed running platformer, where the goal is to clear a level of enemies and get to the end as quick as possible using various different cards that you pick up
Hmm.
in order to. The cards are all weapons, um,
Right.
but when you discard the card, they act as a mobility power of some sort, like a double jump or a dash or
Hmm.
a stomp, and they all help you clear the runs faster. And the game really, really makes you feel super cool. It because like I'm not a speedrunner by any stretch. This is the first one I've really played, and it's incredibly intuitive. You can pick it up super quickly. I I basically 100% the game. I got
Okay, nice.
the highest rank.
Hmm.
There's a ranking system.
Sure. For like each
And
level, you got that?
yeah, yeah. And so I maxed everything.
Damn.
I completed everything, and it only took me like a few days,
Hmm.
like maybe 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, that's
So
not
it's
bad.
nice and concise, but it's a fun game. Like the sense of speed that you have when you're playing
Hmm.
the game is pretty palpable, and it kind of like drives you in. Once you get a good run going and you get the controls down, yeah, it's very, very fun.
Yeah.
I can only imagine playing it on mouse and keyboard, because the amount of speed you need to whip the camera around
Yeah.
is pretty important. But
Hmm.
strong recommendation for Neon White. It was really
Yeah.
really solid.
Is there like a character story thing, or is there like there's like
There
some dialogue in
is,
there? Like what is that
yes,
like?
yeah. It's almost so in there is definitely a narrative element to it. It's almost like an kind of like anime JRPG kind
Mm-hmm.
of stuff where in the levels, once you have beaten it the first time, um, or I think it's once you've gotten to like the silver medal, which is
Okay.
getting a certain time on each level, you'll unlock a gift that you can get, which is somewhere in the level, and you have to find it. And once you, it usually takes some puzzle solving to like, oh, I need to save up these cards and then go to this part of the map specifically and kind of use them in a way that I wouldn't when I'm just running through the map
Mm-hmm.
originally. But once you get the gifts, then you can take them back to this like a hub area, um, and you can kind of gift them to various characters that are surrounding you, and you will level up their relationship, and you get some like dialogue through there, almost like a kind of persona type thing, loosely. But I wouldn't say the story is incredible.
Sure.
It's pretty tropey,
Mm-hmm.
but it does. It's
It
it's
exists.
good enough. Yeah, yeah, it exists.
Okay.
You're not really playing it for that. You're playing it for
Right.
the gameplay, and the
Mm-hmm.
gameplay is fantastic.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's good to hear. I think my brother's played that and he really enjoys it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I'll ever uh, take the step into that, but I might
The plan.
someday. Um, so yeah, for me, I was continuing some of the games that I was talking about last time. One of them was Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, Peter. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just playing some more of that, and I wanted to exchange this particular currency for a different type of currency, but you can only do that while like in online mode. So I tried doing that, and I get met with the PlayStation like, buy PS Plus, you bastard! You have to pay us money for this shit, and I was just like,
Mm.
actually, I think I'm done with this game. I'm good. So I just took that as a sign of like, all right, I could stop right here. But
I
basically, I
think
was
that's
trying to
fair.
bide my time until Metaphor ReFantazio released. I played the demo for it, and then there was a few weeks until it would eventually arrive upon my doorstep. So I had to sort of figure out various random
Mm-hmm.
things to do, and sort of
Mm-hmm.
I ended up playing a couple of smaller things, which I'll get to. But one of them was a continuation of another one of the things I was talking about last time, which was UFO 50. It's just a
Yes.
really
Yep.
fun, really cool little. Um, I say little; it's a pretty big pack of games in there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I ended up beating 7 of them, Peter, which I'm gonna
Nice.
sort of label off here. So one of them is Mooncat, and this is a game where you play as a walking embryo thing, and the
Light bulb.
controls,
Yeah.
yeah, and the controls are very wacky. It's
Mm-hmm.
all of the buttons on the left, so like the D-pad, are
Mm-hmm.
going to move you to the right, and all of the buttons on the left, which are just the the circle buttons, they're going to move
Mm-hmm.
you to the left. So they move you in the opposite
Yeah.
direction of
Incredibly
where they're
strange.
positioned in the corner
Yeah.
in the controller. Um, and you hold down one of them to move in that direction. You double tap it and then hold it down to run in that direction. And if you are moving in one direction and you tap the button on the other side, then you jump.
Okay.
And if
Uh.
you keep holding that
Uh-huh.
direction, you keep going that way, but you could let go of the movement one and then you'll go the other way instead. And if you are moving and then you jump while still holding down that movement thing, if you press the button you used to jump again, then you can do like a ground pound thing and you could use it to bounce off of enemies and objects and stuff. And it's a really weird, it takes some getting used to.
It's
But
not intuitive at all.
no,
But
not at
once you
all.
get
It's
it,
it's it's
then
like, yeah, it's definitely weird and made up. But it's one of my favorites, I'd say, from this thing here, because the platforming, once you get used to that, it's pretty cool. And when you die, you just get reset to the whatever like screen you're on. It's not like a lot of these games, like if they were legitimately released in these like 1980s, 1990s type of time periods, they would definitely like just fucking say fuck you and put you back to the start or whatever. Like maybe you
hmm
have like a couple lives, but like in this one, it just sort of resets the screen, which is much appreciated. And when that does happen, it's like the UI gets covered with like a bunch of fish as like the transition. It's like I don't understand where that's coming from, because mostly you're going around through like this forests and then cave areas, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's a really weird, unique game, I'd say. So I enjoyed that one. Another one I beat was Bushido Ball, which is samurais playing soccer, and they use like their samurai swords to like hit the ball, and like there's 6 different characters, and they each have like this special move or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a 2-player mode, which I've yet to try out any of the multiplayer things in this, but I hopefully I'll rope my brothers into fucking around with it eventually. But the single player one is sort of like an arcade mode, where it's like you choose one character and then you face off against the other 5. And once again, if this was a game made back in this like 1980s period thing, it would be like
Mm-hmm.
you get one shot at each of them, and if you fuck up, you have to go back from the beginning. Thankfully, this wasn't like this, so I was able to beat it after a very long time after the last match. That took me like hella tries.
It's a tough game.
Yeah, it was tough, but I got through it. And then another one I went through was Camouflage, which I didn't just beat Peter, I cherried it, which means I 100%ed it or something like that. It's kind of vague about what that means, but I think that's what it means. And Camouflage is sort of like a nice little puzzle game where you play as a chameleon, and you have to go from one part of the map to another while escaping the sight of frogs and alligators and things that want to eat you. And you do that by like transforming your color into the different colors based on like the grids and stuff. And it's a pretty fun one. It took some like once eventually I sort of figured out the sort of like layout and strats of like certain things. It just sort of clicks, I guess.
It's a puzzle game
After a certain
yeah.
point, but it was fun also. And then another one was the Big Bell Race, which is a mix of Flappy Golf and Kirby Air Ride. So I was sort of utilizing like these 2 different like skill sets I had from different games and like combining them into one. Where it's like Kirby Air Ride has this top-down game mode where it's just like these small maps and you see the entire thing at once, and you're just sort of going around in a bunch of loops with like against the other players, and you pick up like random items on the way to like sort of mess them up, and you're like knocking into each other and stuff, and all of that's in this thing. But it's with the controls of Flappy Bird, so it's that like you press this button, you go this, you like jump in this direction and stuff. And so since I was kind of decent at both of those, I kind of shredded the CPU competition in this game, and I won on my first try, I guess.
Oh, nice, very nice.
And then another one was Waldorf's Journey, which is you play as a walrus, Peter, and you're like having a dream, and you're in the clouds, and you're like jumping around on the clouds, and you have to like just navigate yourself. It's like somewhat randomized, like it's hard to describe, I guess, but you're like launching yourself from one platform to another, and you have to figure out like the momentum and angle and certain things like that, and there's items to pick up. And eventually there's like, you're just trying not to get like knocked off, because if you fall, you just, have to reset the thing. But it's fairly easy to do. It's like one of the most like doable games on this collection here. I'd say it took me like 2 or 3 tries or something. And then the next one is House Party, or Party House is what I have written down. I thought it was House Party, but I wrote Party House, which I'm going to assume that's correct. And this was honestly probably my favorite one. It's hard to describe, but it's like a resource management time-based thing where you have to throw a really good party, and you manage popularity and money. Money lets you buy more spaces so you can have more people in there, and popularity lets you buy people. And that one's a fun one. It's like this weird kind of random puzzle thing. And it's fairly unique, and it's nice.
Is it at all like the Papa's Pizzeria or Pizzeria ones, or is it like kind of in that like the time management thing?
I don't know.
Or is it not?
Well, it's time management is in there like a certain number of turns you have to win the game, which you win the game by having a certain number of certain characters in the like place. So not quite like that. Maybe it's comparable in some ways. I don't know. And then after that, there was Night Manor, which is a horror game, Peter. I don't play many of these, neither do you, because we try to stay away from them because they kind of scare the bejeebus out of us. But this one I think is very doable. I think if I could do it, you could do it, Pete. And
Okay. Okay.
probably anyone at home could probably do this one also. And it's um, whatever games that Resident Evil was inspired upon, like whatever like started off that franchise, is like
Mhm.
sort of what this game is, where it's like this point and click. You're going through this creepy house in the middle of the night, and there's storms or whatever, and you're picking up items and you're investigating rooms to like eventually get out of the place, and you're like, oh, this thing here, I need maybe something like this to help me do this
Right.
thing. And then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I have this item, so I could use it against this thing. Like sort of like that. And
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
I sort of mostly enjoy games like that. I almost always get stuck at least once or
It's
twice
almost like an
on them.
escape room,
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
like pick up this piece and then you can
Yeah.
combine it with this piece in order to go here because you need to
Yeah,
get
exactly.
that, and then yeah, yeah.
And it's fun. I did it in one sitting. It took me about 2 hours or so, but I was also like kind of fucking around for like like 30 minutes of that. So most
Sure.
people could probably get it done a little bit quicker than me. Um, and yeah, like the horror aspects of it, it's just that like perfect balance of like creepy, but I'm not gonna be like absolutely terrified of like
Yeah.
literally everything ever, because there's like just one zombie dude in the place, and it's just that's all you have to worry about.
Hmm.
Which he is a force to be reckoned with, I guess, a little bit. Um, but yeah, it's like far from like the creepiest thing ever, and it's just that like there's like a good story in there also, where it's like it's all about like the reading notes or whatever, like stuff you pick up and like piecing things
Yeah.
together. And it's fun, like sort of seeing like figuring out like what exactly happened to this like weird fucked up house that you've found yourself in. Um, and yeah, this was definitely one of the better ones on there, which I also technically cherried, I think, somehow.
Cool. Cool.
Um,
Cool. Cool.
and then other than that, there's a couple of other games that I like. I'll just point out a few of them now because I'll probably talk about this game again in the future. One of them is Pin Golf, which is a combination of pinball and golf, and
Hmm.
it's really fucking hard. And I've played this one like 5 times, and I got in the bottom racket each time, except for the most recent time,
Damn.
which I played where I got second to last.
Oh.
And it's tough, man. It's because some of these levels, it's sort of like Super Stickman Golf, where it's
Okay.
it's that 2D sort of perspective, and you're just like all about the angle and the amount of power that you put into the ball. And it's a lot of levels that will just screw you over if you have like the slightest like a bit off course thing. It's just nope, that's five more
Damn.
strokes for you, dude. So like sometimes I'm like doing the holes, and I'm like really fucking nailing them like one after another. Like the first five in a row, like get like almost perfectly, and then like the next few hit, and it's just like my whole shit's completely ruined. So, but it's a lot of fun because it goes fairly quick, like to get through all the holes. And then there's also this one Pilot Quest, which is like this resource management like cookie clicker, but also the original Legend of Zelda, where you crash land on this planet, and you have to like get these resources to build the ship back up, but then you also can also like train like go through this overworld thing that has a couple of dungeons, and at the end of these dungeons there's missing ship parts that you need to gather also. And like it's the overworld itself, it's not as big or as detailed as any of the Zelda games, but it's very
Sure.
comparable. The way it's like on a grid sort of base
Hmm.
system, where you like move around one area, and then it's like you get to the end of it, and it like does that sort of slow transition into the next like box of the overworld thing. So it definitely reminds you of that, but it's not quite that. But it's still fun and cool. And I'll probably talk about this game more in the future, but I've said too much, Peter. So what's
50
next on your
times in the
list?
future.
Oh
Uh,
shit.
while you were kind of discussing those games, I think the last time that we were talking about it, I was playing God of War
Yep.
2018, which I
Mm-hmm.
had finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then did I talk about Ragnarok? Because I have played Ragnarok.
Off the top of my head, I
And
forget. You may have mentioned it briefly that you were like
yeah.
starting it or something. I have no idea.
But Ragnarok essentially, I can keep it pretty short because I think it's just an improvement on the first game in basically every way, I would
Okay.
say. The pacing is a little off sometimes because you do get sections where you're not Kratos, but you play as his son,
Right.
which, spoiler alert, I guess, but also
We
it's
spoiled
like,
that in the last episode, and billions of people
yeah,
all over the planet already know that. So whatever.
yeah. So the pacing can be a little weird, but I think the overall, the narrative is better. The
Okay.
gameplay is better. It's a little tighter. Same with the exploration. They give you a few more tools that make it a little more enjoyable to move around.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think it's just an improvement overall. Both are good games, good to great, I would say.
Like better
Um,
combat in this one.
yeah, I did enjoy the combat more. Yeah,
What's
no
what's
spoilers or anything,
what's
but
playing like his
I
son
think
like? Is that more stealth gameplay or is it just like different
no,
type of combat?
it's
Like
just a
you're just
different type of
ranged or
combat. Yeah,
something?
it's like a different system
Okay.
that you kind of get to. It's not as obviously in depth as the progression system that you get with Kratos,
Sure.
but he does have his own separate kind of skill tree that you can
Hmm.
kind of progress through.
Can you
So
switch between them on the fly or is it like during certain
no,
story points you
it's
just play as
during
him?
narrative
Okay.
moments. They switch perspective.
Okay.
Um, I wasn't. I didn't think it was awful. Um, Pacing wise, I know there are like some people who hated it and thought like the Atreus sections like dragged the whole game down. But I think it was
Hmm.
good enough to
Yeah, that's
be
cool.
an improvement over the original. Um, and then after that, I started playing the Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor games. I played both of those back to back.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I I enjoy them. I think they're the some of the best um, single player like Star Wars content that we've gotten in a long, long while. Um, they put a lot of effort into these games, and I'm glad Respawn did a good job. They're very ambitious. I'd say the narratives are some of the stronger points in
Hmm.
both games. They're sure a little like tropey and formulaic, and a bit like it's pretty, indebted to the Marvel kind of
Oh
formula
yeah.
of like structure,
Okay.
but it works for a Star Wars movie. Like it's essentially a Star Wars movie, right? Except like you get to actually play it,
Sure.
and it's way more immersive because of that. Um, the gameplay in both these games is really interesting because it is essentially modeled on the Souls-like formula,
Right.
where but the thing is, you can choose difficulty, which
Hmm.
immediately kind of sets it apart from a Souls-like in like the strictest sense.
Sure.
But I would say I played through both of them on Grandmaster, which is the hardest difficulty.
Because you're just
Um,
that fucking good. If you could get through Sifu on the hardest thing,
Yeah,
you could get through anything.
exactly. I played through fucking hard games because I don't know why. I like
You
the
like to challenge
sense of
yourself.
I like the sense of competency
Sure.
that it gets me, and I feel educated enough to be like, I know the ins and outs of this game because I
Hmm.
had to know.
Right.
I was forced to get good, as they say. So Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, difficulty wise, I'd say they're pretty similar. I think Fallen Order, the first one, is probably harder. Survivor toned it down to some extent. Some of the bosses are pretty fucking hard
Oh
in
yeah.
Survivor though on Grandmaster, because there's a lot more ranged bosses, which is
Uh,
annoying because
yeah.
you're a Jedi. But there are interesting tools that they give you to deal with ranged combatants,
Okay.
especially in the second one. But I'd say overall, a lot of the gameplay is split up between that style of combat where and like exploration where you're going, finding a bonfire or a meditation point, and then kind of having that as your checkpoint, your respawn. And then if you die, you lose the XP that you've gained, and you need to find it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and all the enemies always kind of respawn
Yep.
whenever you hit up a bonfire. And so that is the basic structure of the game, split up between a lot of platforming segments. Essentially, it's like a mix
Oh yeah.
between the Souls-like games, probably closest to Sekiro, I would compare it to
Right.
maybe.
Because that one also sort of was platforming. I remember playing. I
Yeah.
played a little bit of the first game, but
Hmm.
like I'm not good at those
I'd compare
anything
the
related to Souls
platforming
games.
to um, probably like an Uncharted style of platforming, even similar to God of War to some extent. I would say that the Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor definitely took notes from God of War when that came out.
Okay.
Um, just in how it's presented, very like they're both. All of these games are like AAA when you think of
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
AAA
Yeah.
games, and I'm glad I could say that like they put in the work. There's
Hmm.
quality there. I know Jedi Survivor was released originally in like a terrible state and super broken. No one could play it. It was like frame drops, stutters, crashes, whatever you could think of. And I didn't struggle with too much of that. It did run worse on my PC. I don't have a great PC, period.
Hmm.
So it did struggle more on Survivor, but I think that's fair because it
Sure.
dropped this year.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
still, both of
Modern
those
Western
are,
games, they're gonna fucking beat your.
yeah,
If your computer, any part of it is more than 3 years old, it's done.
it's tough. I'm pushing my PC to the limit.
Yeah.
And they're also like 200 gigs now. It's like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about?
they're so
200?
fucking
It's like
big.
150. Like what? When? What? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Neon White was like 5 gigs maybe.
Yeah.
It's like it's nice because like if you're talking about like indie games, you can get that shit packaged down into like 5 gigs.
UFO
And
50
you
is
can
like
have a
half a
great
gigabyte.
Exactly. Like, oh my
But also
God.
that's
You
just,
can have
that's
quality.
that makes sense for that game.
Yeah, it depends on the art style and various different
Yeah.
elements, but still, like, it's tough when the games are getting this big. I feel like they had it figured out in
No, I
the
know.
80s. Like, like what are you talking
Well,
about? You
back
can get
then
Final Fantasy
the stuff
down into like 8
that
megs.
size, like for whatever, like it's very small for us now, but back then it
Incredibly,
was pretty big. I think
oh
like
yeah,
even like a
without a
couple
doubt.
megabytes
Yeah.
or even like 100 of them. That was probably pretty huge. But now it's the
Oh, 100 megs would
gigabytes.
be insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's all gigs and getting to, if we got terabyte
So
size
yeah,
storage,
yes,
we
yeah.
better use
By
it.
the time
We
we're
better
16
use
years
it.
old, games are going to be 5 terabytes in
It's like,
size.
oh my God.
When we're still doing this
Uh,
channel, at that point, we'll have to look back on this video and see if that's
yeah.
true.
The progression will never stop. But I would recommend the Jedi games to those who haven't played it yet. So long as you're comfortable with fighting
Yeah,
or
I'm
beating
not.
tough games. They are
I'm not with the
difficult.
Souls ones. I
Yeah.
get my ass
The thing
handed
is,
at
you
those.
can turn down the difficulty,
Right,
and it's
sure.
way easier
But I don't want to
when you
do
play
that.
on.
I don't want to bitch out of it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. It I mean, it's enough of a narrative experience that you could just play through it for the story, and I think you'd be
Okay.
well off. It's solid enough, and the characters are great. Yeah, I think they nailed it, and I'm excited to see. I think they're making a third game to finish off a trilogy, and then I'd be interested to see
Because it's Star Wars, it has to be
what else they
trilogies.
Yep. It'd probably be one of the better ones out there.
Who was the group of people who made it? Is it? It's not
Respawn,
EA. Okay, Respawn.
I'm pretty
okay.
sure. Who did Titanfall and well, what else have they done? That was kind of my
Oh yeah,
second
sure.
third game that I played.
Hmm. You hit both of those and finished both of those. How long
Yeah.
are they each?
They
like
were
20
big
hours? Or,
Probably longer
Ooh.
for most people.
yeah,
Um,
but not for you. For most people.
not for me. And I'd say I did my best to fight every single boss.
Mhm.
Maybe not do all like the side quest stuff though,
Sure.
because I will admit like some of the maps are pretty difficult to like maneuver around. Like I don't know.
They're
The-
confusing.
The map is like the map is confusing, and then the level design is confusing. So they don't really work hand in hand very well.
I see. So yeah, the next one I got is, I just needed some time to fuck around with something small that I could just start and end pretty quickly before Metaphor got released. So one of those things was Astro's Playroom, which it's like the free game that comes with every PS5. Which
Oh yes,
this isn't to get confused with Astro Bot, which was that like
No.
full-fledged game that got released this year, I think.
Yep.
This is Astro's Playroom, okay? And it's just sort of a cute, very easy baby platformer that's basically just one big advertisement for PlayStation products, because one of the main collectibles in this game is just PlayStation consoles and controllers and all the other various accessories, and they have them very detailed.
Wow.
The models for them are very detailed, and you get to like move them around and like sort of interact with them. You can like like on some of the consoles, you can like open the disk drive and like see what it looks like on the inside and stuff. And it I almost fell for it. I'm like, oh, I need to get me some of these. Like the PS Vita is like, oh, that looks nice, but you know, I don't have. I would literally have no use for that in today's world, Peter. Like I
You
may be thinking about getting a Steam
could.
Deck, but like
What could you
I'm
do with the
waiting on it.
PS Vita?
Yeah,
I think you could maybe
you
play
can mod PS
Persona
Vitas.
2
Yeah, well,
on there.
Persona 4 is on PS Vita. I think it
Oh,
was
yeah, yeah,
originally
yeah,
released
yeah,
on that actually,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
That,
at
I
least
think that's
Golden.
what I was
One
thinking
of the
of.
versions was on that
One of
thing.
them, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
and
couldn't
then
remember which one.
I guess portable Persona 3 portable was on PSP, I
Yes.
assume, or else it would have been Persona 3 Vita. Probably not, because I don't think it was that affiliated with Sony, even though at the time
Not
that was the only
directly.
things they were putting shit out on. But yeah, it's just a fun little thing. It's pretty easy to 100%. The only thing that gave me trouble was like this one like Ape Escape character shows up and you have to like mimic its dance moves, and if you fail, you have to like traverse like an entire part of the map again just to get this one item. It was silly, but it's just a neat little fun time. It's pretty short, pretty digestible, and I think someday I might get that Astro Bot, like the bigger um, sort of game
Hmm.
made with the same little dude. Because I am interested in that, uh, but I'm waiting for it to fucking decrease in price because I'm not paying
Price, yeah.
for all that.
Hell no.
So yeah,
All right. Um, I played through a lot of games. So
yep.
I also, after playing through the Jedi games, I was still kind of hankering for some more of that Souls-like experience. So I figured I might as
You
well
didn't
play
have enough
Lies
with
of
both
P.
of those. You had
I
to.
didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. I wanted more. So I checked out Lies of P, which came out a year or two ago.
Sorry, which one?
Um, Lies of P.
Oh, okay.
It's the
Okay.
Pinocchio one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was excellent. It
Yeah.
was really, really good. I'd heard good things about it, but I also was a little hesitant to get into it just because of it's like, okay, they're just like it's Pinocchio, but Dark Souls. It's like the whole thing. It's like I don't trust most game developers to match the quality that FromSoft does
Sure.
with this style of game. I feel like Souls likes are very easy to make, but hard to make well. There are only maybe a handful that I've heard are like even comparable to FromSoft's games, but like none of them are ever really directly compared with them. Like FromSoft's are always on another echelon, but Liza P is the one that I heard a lot of people are like, this is on the same level. This is just a great a Dark Souls alternative. It's a great Souls like,
Hmm.
and I agree. I think I like it considering that I've played through all of the Dark Souls and Sekiro and Elden Ring, not Bloodborne because I don't have a damn PlayStation 4, and they're never gonna re-release it, which
Dang.
fucking sucks.
Yeah.
But other than that, I played through all of them, and I would say I like Lies of P better than two at least, and I'd say
Sure.
it's definitely up there amongst like
Okay.
the better ones. It's like it's a really solid game. They they have all of the sauce that makes like a FromSoft game like so intriguing and like addictive to play,
Hmm.
despite the difficulty. It's just something about the world. They did a great job with the city is called Krat, which is essentially I mean, it's all based on Pinocchio, obviously.
Hmm.
So it's really cool how they take the folklore, kind of twist it, and have their own interpretations of it to fit into this kind of dark and like gritty kind
Hmm.
of fairy tale. But the combat is solid. I don't know if I like it quite as much as like a Dark Souls, but I think the amount of freedom and variation that you can get done with the system is better than
Hmm.
any of the FromSoft's games, even
Mm-hmm.
Elden Ring, I would say, just because of that. There's this really cool system where you can break apart your weapons, essentially every weapon in the game, into two pieces, the blade and the hilt,
Mm-hmm.
and you can combine them with whatever.
Okay.
So there are different archetypes of hilts and different like styles of blades, right? So there are like pole type hilts, there are sword type hilts, there are great sword or two-handed like versus one-handed, and then there's like a dagger hilt, and you can put the dagger hilt on
I was
a
gonna ask.
hammer or like a big ass wrench, and that hammer, the hammer head,
Uh-huh.
will swing as fast as the dagger
Oh
will.
damn.
But the interesting thing is that the hilts have the scaling. So in all of the kind of Souls-like games, they usually have weapons that scale towards one stat, and thus you want to prioritize that stat when you're using a certain weapon.
Mm-hmm.
With the assembly of these weapons in Lies of P, you can have your handle prioritize whatever stat. But if you want to throw like a dagger blade on there because it has high crit chance or it does more status damage, then you can
Okay.
just put that on your strength-based hilt, and you don't have to worry about kind of double dipping into dexterity or whatever.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And it makes for really cool customization options. And each of these blades and hilts has this thing called a fable art, which are essentially weapon arts from the Dark Souls games. There's special powers that you can use on like a certain resource management.
Okay.
You have 3 bars of Fable Arts, I believe, to begin with, and then you unlock more as you progress. But you can use it to do like a special move, essentially. Like you can boost the damage of your next attack, or you can use like a big swing and do a bunch of like just heavy one-shot damage, but it'll take up like 2 bars or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'd say that the combat system is just a little off of what Bloodborne and Sekiro combined would be, where it's a very parry-focused game, but you still have to kind of dodge around. Obviously, it's a hard game, but then once you block damage, you still take chip damage, but so long as you haven't been hit directly, you can attack, and any damage you do will in turn kind of heal you back up
Oh,
to
okay. Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
it
yeah.
was. It will tick down, so you have to play somewhat aggressively in order to get the most out of it. But
Mm-hmm.
it makes for a very kind of engaging combat system where it's a constant give and take.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But honestly, the rest of the game is just as solid. Like the enemy variety, super impressive. There are essentially 2 main different enemy groups, puppets and zombies, essentially carcasses is what they're called, the undead. And they have different kind of versions of the same enemy archetypes. Like there will be heavies or like, grunts or ones with swords or some type of weapon versus various ranged ones. But the amount of different ones is super impressive.
That's cool.
It keeps you engaged throughout the entire game, so you're never like, oh, this is kind of getting boring.
The
I'm
same
running
one,
through the
but it's
same
red
enemies.
now.
Exactly. All of them do enough, or at least have a different enough moveset from each other,
Okay.
that you don't have to worry about feeling tedious or like kind of tearing your way through the same enemy over and over and over. But the level design, the world design, great. The narrative is a lot more straightforward than like the inescapability of like a Dark Souls kind of story. If you can even say that they have one, like most people are not gonna like go onto YouTube and watch like the extended lore of
Sure.
like Elden Ring. Shout out Vatividia, but it's just not something that most people do. So in Lies of P, the narrative is a lot more focused and
Okay.
straightforward, and something that you can, for better for worse, it's a little kind of heady to some extent, but I think it's a cool narrative, and it gets at some interesting questions that like you don't really get in the original Pinocchio,
Okay.
but or at least not the Disney's version.
Sure.
Perhaps in the original
Have
story.
you? I don't know.
I
Have you
should
read
read.
the
I
original
should.
thing?
I
Is
have
it?
not.
Is it like a
I
novel
should
or
read.
is it just like a fable, like 20 pages or something?
That's a great question. I think
I
it's
have
a
no idea.
novel. I'm pretty
There are
sure it's like
probably
a short
novels
story.
of it. I don't know.
Yeah, but I've been seeing a bunch of like good Pinocchio representation with Guillermo del Toro's
That one
stop
slaps.
motion one, and so I should probably read it at some point.
Now was the
But yeah,
best year to be a Pinocchio
there was a
fan.
ton of great stuff coming out.
Yeah.
I will say a strong recommendation for anyone who likes the Souls-like games.
Yeah.
Absolutely check out Lies of P. It's well worth it.
Yeah. Do you replay any of the Souls games at all, or is it kind of like a
I
one and done?
haven't. I might do that for Elden Ring,
Mm.
just because I still haven't played the DLC, so I might do that. Um,
I know a lot of people like replaying those. It's like I did
they
this
are.
build one
I
way, now I'm
believe
gonna
they
do
are
things a different
fun.
way,
Yeah, I
type
believe.
of thing.
Like I do want to. I will play Dark Souls 1 again,
Hmm.
and probably Sekiro, just because those are my top ones that I love. Sekiro's gameplay is just so fun.
Yeah.
What else have you been playing though?
So one of the things, again, to help bide my time a little bit was another little short thing from Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. There's a chapter of it called Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission. And this was
Uh-huh.
DLC released alongside Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. It was sort of like packaged into that sort of enhanced re-release version of the remake, which I did not have that version. I just had Final Fantasy VII Remake, that version of it on PS4, which I transferred to PS5. And it's like one of those where there's a PS4 and a PS5 version separately on the PlayStation 5. And so it transfers the PS4 version over to my thing, and then I have to install a separate PS5 version of it, and the saves don't directly transfer over. I have to open the PS4 version of it, and then choose a particular save and upload it, and then go open the other game, and then download that. And I do that like a couple of times or whatever. And Final Fantasy VII Remake Intermission is a DLC that I had to buy separately for the game, which is a little bit silly, but I bought it on sale, so whatever. And it's one where you play as this character named Yuffie, who is a party member, an optional party member in the original game, who I did not recruit. There are two optional party members in that game, and I somehow missed both of them. I might be slightly stupid, but I also, at the time, that was probably like, I don't know, not 7 years ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago when I was doing that section of the game and I missed them. Oops.
I mean, some JRPG
No, I know. Some of those
companions
old
and
ones, it's like, oh, fucking,
just like,
how
why would
was I
you
supposed to
ever
know?
do this? Yeah. And
Yeah.
some are just completely locked off if
Yeah.
you make like
Final
certain
Fantasy
decisions.
VII, there's only two of them for 7, but
Mhm.
for a lot of the other games, like before that, it is a lot of like sort of specific things. Like I think 6 has hella party members that like kind of come and go a lot, and yeah, a lot of them I think are optional. But yeah, so this one focuses on Yuffie, and the gameplay it took some re-getting used to because I was very far away from playing this game, even though I had 100%ed it and done it on hard mode. So I was like, in theory, a master champ or whatever at this game, but that was like maybe it was at least a year ago at this point, I think. So coming back to it was a bit tough at first, but eventually it was actually this like stupid achievement for like there's like this mini game box challenge section where you have to destroy all these boxes within a certain amount of time, and it was really hard, but it essentially right there taught me everything I need to know about the character, and then after that
Okay.
point, it was like the whole thing was pretty doable from there. It has a fresh new story that is brand new. The main story of Final Fantasy VII Remake is sort of a retelling, rehashing, but also doing a lot of things very differently from the original. And I think this one was just all kind of made up. I don't think it was. If it was any part of it in the original. It was probably just Yuffie lore dumping the protagonist at some point during like her side mission thing,
Sure.
maybe.
Yeah.
But I think it's for the most part fairly new, and it's a lot of asset reuse in terms of like the actual locations. It's just like the same fucking place I've spent running around for 80 hours or whatever. But it's fine because there's some new areas, and the combat of playing as her is different enough. There's also they brought back in a new way this thing called Fort Condor, which in the original game was like this tower defense thing that I really didn't bother with a whole lot. I was just kind of like, whatever. But in this, the way they sort of modernize it is they make it like Clash Royale, where it's like there's two sides of the field, and each side is these
Okay,
three
okay.
towers, and you deploy units to like go and fuck their
Yeah.
dudes up. And so I was sort of utilizing my Clash Royale knowledge from I played that game when it was released in maybe like 2016, so a long time ago.
Hmm.
Um, but it's sort of that knowledge of like, okay, they're deploying this enemy here and it's going this way, and I got to deploy this unit in this position at this time so that they aggro onto the unit instead of my tower, and my tower and the unit can attack that dude at the same time. So it's like a fucking, and it has that same like resource system that like fills up over time. So it's like I get a positive elixir advantage or whatever the fuck, but
Hmm.
whatever resource instead of elixir in this thing. Um, and so in that, there's also the like they sort of got like a Fire Emblem weapon triangle, and that also where it's like red beats green and green beats blue and blue beats red. So I was utilizing both my epic Fire Emblem skills along with Clash Royale knowledge to dominate that game mode. I absolutely terrorized the competition of CPUs in that mode. But I think I
And
will. Yeah,
NPCs.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think
They
I will
couldn't handle it.
replay this on hard mode somewhat soon. While it's still at least a little bit fresh in my mind. It was like almost a month ago or around a month ago that I was doing this.
Okay.
So, um, you know, but I think on the hard mode, not only does like the actual fight difficulty increase, but I think the Fort Condor AI they like get they're smarter or something maybe. So I think I got to do it all again, which I'm cool with because I enjoyed that little thing.
Hmm.
And yeah, the story is fun. Whatever Yuffie as a character, she's sort of like I don't know, like a little over the top anime sort of fucking I don't know. She's fun sometimes. But yeah, I'll play this on hard mode, get whatever other achievements remain, which one of them requires me to fight this in the main game. I have to fight this extra super boss that was added after you beat Yuffie's DLC. So I get the joy of going back to fighting the hardest boss in the game on hard mode after I've like because I barely like know how to play her, so now I have to like relearn how to do it with an entire party of dudes. So that'll be fun when I do that.
Yeah, so much fun.
And then after that, I could finally get to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Peter, because it
Slowly but
never ends.
surely.
And then by the time I actually beat that game, they're gonna announce the next one,
It's the
which I won't
never-ending
get to.
franchise. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never-ending game. It could have just been one big game, but it had to be three because the original game was on 3 discs when they first put it out. Because I was it was so big, but whatever. So yeah, what do you got next?
All right. I'm finishing it off with what I'm playing now, um, which is the game of the moment. It is mired in so much controversy right now. It is like the most controversial game I think I've decided to just like start playing. Um, I don't know if you recognize it, but this is I'm playing Dragon Age: The Veilguard.
Oh shit.
I'm not sure
Okay.
if you have heard any
No,
of
I've
the
heard. I've heard.
the Discord. Oh yeah, it's
A
hard to
little,
miss the
a little
discourse if
bit.
you're in any of the gaming circles. Um, but yeah,
I was
eventually,
wondering if you would hit this one because I know you're a fan of those.
exactly. So my history with this series is fairly long. I played Dragon Age Origins first. I think like maybe a few years after it first came out, and loved it. Dragon Age
Hmm.
Origins is still one of my favorite games of all time. Like it's fantastic. The RPG system there is like the some of the best. It like it's up there with like Knights of the Old Republic and like Disco Elysium recently, where it's just like excellent role playing opportunities and choices that have like interesting consequences
Hmm.
and ramifications in the wider story. Um, and I think the second one was a little worse.
Okay.
Second one is not as good in my opinion, but not as bad as many people think. A lot of people did not like 2 when it came out because it is incredibly different from Origins. Um, it's much more of like a action kind of. It's more of an action game in the combat system. The first one had like a really interesting kind of tactical like pause and play element to it. You could kind of scroll out the camera and have it play as like a top-down tactics board where you can pause, issue out commands, and queue up like orders
Right.
and let it play out. And I really enjoyed that kind of combat. With 2, they went in a much more like action-oriented where you're always kind
Yeah.
of just like mashing like buttons and like trigger down to like shoot, fire, whatever. And the story was a lot more is smaller. So whereas the narrative of Origins was pretty grand and really engaging, probably my favorite of the series. 2 was more constrained, still interesting, and I think the narrative is better than most people originally gave it credit for. But most people didn't play it, honestly. Like, I feel like a lot of people have not played 2 in the series. Then Inquisition came out, 2016, I think,
Around
something
then,
like
yeah.
that. And it was also somewhat divisive. People liked it. I think it was seen as a return to form. I really liked Inquisition. I played a shit ton of it. I played so much of it, played all the DLC. It's also a really good game. I like the series. Dragon Age is one of my favorite video game series. And now Dragon Age The Veilguard came out. And holy shit, the amount I heard about this game in the like week before, maybe like 2 weeks before, not many people were talking about it, honestly. Like especially like way back, like when the first trailers were released, like people were there were only like rumblings in the background. Like people were kind of upset. They like as more news dropped about choices that the developers made, there was more and more kind of unrest in the wings. But still, people were like, we'll wait to let it come out. And now that the game is out and the reviews were initially released, man, this is one of the most divisive games to have come out in a long time, I feel like. The amount of like discourse surrounding this game and the like rampant like disagreements and conflicts that arise when talking about this game is insane. It's either the worst game of all time, woke trash, just anti anything, it's just garbage, or it's one of the best games BioWare has ever released, and it's fantastic, best game of the year. So I had to play it. I had to play it to figure out. I was going to play it no matter what because I love the Dragon Age. I just never would have expected a game franchise that I like to be this big and this talked about and like so controversial right now. So I'm playing it because I want to. I like the games. And I had to see if all of like the disgruntled fans essentially have it right, and like where we absolutely betrayed and like they ruined the franchise that I love so dearly. They completely shat all over it. And I'm playing it. I'm maybe 4 or 5 hours in now. Maybe 5, 6. I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of the game right now. And what can I say? I think it's decent. Like, I think it's okay. I think it's pretty good, honestly. I think people have blown it so far out of proportion. It's actually insane. I don't understand how we're playing the same game. Like, I will, first and foremost, I do think that the role-playing elements and the writing are the weakest elements of it, which sucks. Because that is the reason why I like the franchise, right? That's why I love Dragon Age Origins, the first one, and even the second and Inquisition. The narrative elements are the strongest parts, but also the writing helped to enforce that and get you enthralled and like invested in it.
Motivated,
yeah. I'd say 2 had that in less elements, but it was still an interesting enough narrative that you kind of fell along with it. The writing wasn't that bad. With this one, it's not great. I think the narrative and like the story is still pretty cool. And there is not all of the writing is this bad. I'd say a lot of elements with Solus, who, if anyone is listening, knows who that is. He's like the main villain, not really. He was your party member in Inquisition, and then at the end of the DLC for that game,
Oh no!
it turns out that,
Spoilers.
yeah,
No,
spoilers.
that probably people don't care. Whatever.
I mean, if you're gonna play Dragon Age, the Veilguard,
Yeah,
Dragon
it's
Age
gonna
4,
be
then
spoiled immediately.
it's the main plot point. But essentially, he is an elven god.
Okay.
So he was on your party for Inquisition, but that's only because he was in a weakened state, and he's actually an elven god that is trying to destroy the world. Not kind of, more implications, but he has some of the more interesting elements and better writing in this newest game. Whereas the rest of the game, it's difficult because I think there are some moments of great writing. I think people are like way out of proportion just saying like the entire game is written like trash. It's for babies. It's for HR. It's the most sanitized, clean dialogue. No one talks like this. They're like robots. AI wrote this shit. It's like, no, it's not like that. Some of it is pretty like kind of, I don't know. It's like strangely preachy.
Right.
The kind of like
From my
writing
understanding,
at
that's
some moments.
that's what it is. It's
There's
just
like
like
a
the
lot
game
of
like
like
trying to explain its core
big,
values
like
or whatever
almost
to you.
melodramatic and like a little like it's a weird kind of it's not how normal people talk. I
Sure.
will say that. And it's not like grounded enough or like in world enough to like fit in with what Dragon Age Origins or Inquisition or even 2 had. It's definitely something changed with the writing.
Sure.
And it's the most noticeable part. But the rest of the game is like really solid. Like I think I'm enjoying the combat system. I think it has a fun dynamic between like comboing different abilities. It reminds me a lot of Mass Effect Andromeda's gameplay and combat system, which is another controversial BioWare game. So they've been skirting the edge for a long time.
No, yeah, totally.
And I will. Have you ever played Andromeda?
No, I would like to. I've only
Yeah.
just played that trilogy, but
Yeah, the trilogy.
I want to hit that one.
Andromeda
I think I own it.
is an interesting game. I mean, I feel like it is going to be held in a similar vein with the Veilguard, but I think the Veilguard is better. But
really?
it's more controversial now than I
Sure.
think maybe even Andromeda was. Andromeda, I'm going to compare these two because they had a pretty similar kind of
Release.
shit show about their release.
Yeah.
But for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I still like Andromeda has like a great gameplay like combat system and like really interesting like fun combat. The most fun in the series, which I'm not sure if I feel that way with Dragon Age the Veilguard, but I feel like it has a similar combat system to Andromeda. I think the problem with the Dragon Age series is that each game is so fucking different than the other that no fan of one game has really liked the following game. So if you were a fan of Dragon Age Origins,
Yeah.
you didn't really like 2 when it came out. And
Interesting.
if you were a diehard for 2, I mean, there must have been like 5 of them. And you went to Inquisition, it's like that didn't scratch the same itch that 2 did.
I see.
And then 2 also had very different combat and like narrative like scale than what Veilguard is going for. It's a really weird franchise for how much I like it. I think the people who are gonna like the entire series, I think most people will recognize that Veilguard is maybe gonna be the weakest one. But
For now.
for now, I think the world of Dragon Age and like the the wider kind of lore is really interesting. And if you find that the most interesting part of the Dragon Age series, then you're still gonna like the Veilguard.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they keep it grounded. The main story is pretty interesting so far. Um, I'd say I don't know if I love the companions yet. I think they have some depth, and I think that initially they're pretty like tropey and maybe kind of cringe, some of them, and like I don't know if they're introduced as strongly as some of the ones from Origins or Inquisition,
Hmm.
I would say. But I think as you go through the quests, they've got depth. Like there's good writing there. I don't
Okay.
think they're as like hollow or plastic as everyone's trying to like make that out to be. I don't think it's that bad. Um, it reminds me a bit of the Harry Potter game that came out,
Yeah, yeah,
Hogwarts
yeah, yeah,
Legacy,
yeah. Where,
which
where?
I also played recently.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, um,
I still
I
have to
didn't
get
know
to
if
that
I
one because
played that.
I'm curious about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it's they're good games,
It's
but
too
they do
woke.
feel a little plastic. Like
Sure.
there's a sheen to it that I will admit is there, like a layer of like artificiality or like
The
um,
business side of, yeah.
it's just it's a little fake. I
Hmm.
don't know how else to describe it. It's very strange.
I think people would
Um,
understand what you mean because people say sort of similar things about
yeah,
that game and this one.
but I don't think having that sheen
It's
to
not
it
the
is
end of the
enough to
world,
make them bad games
right?
or like terrible, awful. This is the worst piece of trash to ever exist. How could they do this to me?
It gave
It's
me
like
AIDS.
no,
It's
it's
making
not
me
that
sell my
serious.
kids or
Yeah,
something.
like Hogwarts Legacy was fun. I think most people like Hogwarts Legacy now, and like they
Yeah, at
did
this
on
rate, sure.
release. But people are treating that game way, way, way more differently than Dragon Age, which I think is understandable because Dragon Age, the series, has built up a
Yeah,
reputation as
that was
like
just like a
a
one-off thing. That was the first of its kind,
pretty
sort
great
of.
writing throughout.
Uh-huh.
But this one dropped the ball, and so it's a lot more noticeable. Um, However, I don't think that makes it a bad game. Like it's not the dialogue isn't that bad, where it's like, oh my God, please shut this off. I guess I want now I have to play. What was the one that came out? Like Forspoken or Forsaken, something like that. The one that came out maybe this year or last year, where everyone was shitting on it for having like Marvel ass dialogue or whatever.
I forget
It
what
was
game,
like,
but I don't know.
oh, it's right behind me, isn't it? Or like just super
Oh, shit
quippy
like
and like
that.
it's like, oh my God. Um, there's people are like comparing that to like Dragon Age the Veilguard's dialogue. I don't think it's that bad. I think there are some of those like quips and it's fairly jokey, but it's definitely more oriented towards like certain characters are like that. Which is like, man, there's usually a character that's kind of annoying or like super quippy in most games. It's like, I'd say if you fucking like Persona 5, some of those characters are annoying. They're like super quippy and they always have some shitty fucking corny ass joke.
Yeah,
It's like, bro, that
yeah.
wasn't funny. But it's like that's their character, and they do that a lot. So then you can find it kind of endearing, and I
Sure.
don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. I
Okay.
do think it's a little weak, but um, and who knows, maybe they'll drop the ball. But the exploration is pretty interesting. It's very different. The game feels so different than any other Dragon Age. It's damn near a reboot. It's not even in the same series.
Hmm.
It's weird that they're all branding it the same because it's the same world, but and it's a connected story. But the things that they do from game installment to game installment is just mind-boggling. I can see why it's divisive, but it's not a bad game.
Okay.
People might not like it as a Dragon Age game, but I think it's really harsh to say it's one of the worst games ever made. It's
Sure.
like it's pretty solid. There's a lot of polish. The side quests are pretty fun from what I've done. Um, if you like just like exploring and unlocking things, there's some decent puzzles. None of them are like hard, and maybe they're like too like easy to some people, but like I don't know. It's hard to say that it's just terrible. It reminds me a lot of like God of War's puzzles, where it's like it takes you out. Sure, maybe it's like why are there puzzles here? But like also you need gameplay to fill up a game. Like, what
Sure.
do you want? Like, just to walk around the environment? No, obviously, you have to have some sort of sub, like, kind of
Sure.
contained puzzle or like some sort of entertainment while you're playing. Um, but hey, I think it's I'll have to finish it, and
Okay.
I'm enjoying playing through it so far. Um, but I never would have expected how much shit was filled with like
Yeah.
my just like awareness of this game
Hmm.
before I even decided to play it. It was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. What's your character like? What kind of build you going for? Like,
So I'm going mage. I usually like playing mage in these games. I started Origins playing like Dragon Age Origins originally, just as like human male noble fighter. I'm just like
yeah,
the guy. I'm
that's
that
what I
guy.
did
And that
sometimes.
so for like I think I did that in 2 and Inquisition as well.
Hmm.
But then I've replayed. I've replayed Origins 3 times maybe and
Okay.
Inquisition twice. So um I replay them as mages because I think mages are more fun. So with
Got more
the
going
Veilguard,
on.
I'm just like I'm gonna play mage right off the bat, and it's fun. You can like there are like 3 different. The skill progression system is kind of complicated, but I think they make it more complicated than it needs to be, because like
Hmm.
there's a massive constellation of like skills that you can unlock with like skill points, but some of them are just like +10 damage to armor
Okay.
t- or like whatever plus
Sure.
10% damage past barriers or whatever, so it's not super um, in depth, but you can get like you can spec into different weapon sets. Each class has 2 different weapon sets, I think, usually. One is like ranged for the
Hmm.
mage, and then like one is like more close melee to like mid range. Um, it's a dagger and an orb. It's a weird weapon combo, but it's pretty fun. I think it's got enough like interesting combos that you can do with your companions and your own abilities in order to like knock people over, freeze them, or like set them on fire, like blow past their barrier. You can also like stagger them and then like do like a finisher on them. And I think there's enough combo variety and um, enemy variety so far.
Hmm.
I'm not getting burnt out, but I have heard people get like super burnt out about it. Um, but
Well, how long the game's
I don't
even
really
been out
agree with it.
for? For like
I think a
a
lot of the
week now.
reviewers had copies, and a
Oh,
lot of the
sure.
reviewers were not
Sure.
happy. Or like half of them were, half of them weren't. It's been such a weird rollout for this game.
Yeah.
It's actually so strange, um, and I'm interested to talk about it with my cousin, who I
Who also
got
likes the
into the
series?
series
Okay.
like at the same time, and we've been like excited for when it was first announced. It was Dragon Age: The Dreadwolf, which is a way
Oh.
cooler title, or Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which is way cooler because that's what Solus is called. He's called the Dreadwolf. That's his alias, his
Uh.
elven god alias essentially.
Okay.
But they changed it to the Veilguard. I don't know why, man. It's
You'll
it's a
find out
worse name.
50 hours
It's a
in.
worse name.
I am the
Um,
Veil Guard, so it's the real
yeah,
bad guy.
exactly. We were really the Veilguard all along, weren't we? So
Yeah, when
shut
you
up.
defeat
Oh my
him.
God.
What's your
I did
character's name, Peter? Because you have to do that.
oh, I'm Lewin. I'm always Lewin.
Always?
Just 'cause I often put my name as Lewin because shout out inside Lewin Davis. I just think that name is so cool. I
Yeah, the
love the name
movie.
Lewin.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love the movie as
Sure.
well, but also I just think
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Lewin is such a cool name. Welsh
Interesting.
names in general, bro, look them up. Some of the coolest names are Welsh. It's like if you think of like a Lord of
Connor.
the Rings type name, a lot of it's Welsh.
Okay.
Obviously, because J.R.R. Tolkien is just like he's
Oh,
very
okay.
much like in
The
it with
Britain area is sort of near
dialogue
Wales
and yeah, languages and
or
like
whatever. Welsh. Wait.
yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Hmm.
Cool shit. Well, I'm glad you brought that up and you're coming to your own conclusion about the thing rather than because
Yeah,
that's what we're
because I
trying to
think
do
a
here.
lot of the discourse
Yeah,
surrounding this game is probably hollow. I think a lot of people are like upset, but have never actually touched the
bandwagoning
game.
it a little
And
bit.
they're like
They like
looking at
see like a couple
yeah,
lines out of context, and they're like, "Oh
yeah.
yeah,
I
this
mean,
is
yeah.
terrible. I agree,"
There are a
or
lot of
something.
creators that are like obviously making their own like educated reviews and stuff like that,
Sure.
and still getting burnt out about it, which is fair, whatever. I don't think it's that serious, but a lot of the wider discourse about like people just like commenting on videos or like creating negative reviews or like positive reviews on both sides. I don't think anyone's touched it. Like it is, I think, a pretty popular game on Steam right now, and I think
Hmm.
a lot of people are like attracted to it for the discourse.
Yeah, it's probably getting a
Um,
lot of copies dished out.
yeah, but I just at the end of the day, I don't think it's that serious. It's a pretty solid game. It reminds like the combat system is kind of like a Hogwarts Legacy, and the story is like I don't know. It is a bit of like it's a pretty standard Dragon Age story. Like it's in line with the rest of the series. I don't know why people are like having wild expectations now, but I guess if you have like insane games like Baldur's Gate 3 that released like the year before, which has just like insanely impressive with like the dialogue and RPG
Yeah, that game
elements.
is
You go
awesome.
into it expecting you go into Dragon Age the Veilguard expecting Baldur's Gate 3, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah,
So maybe people got their
for sure.
expectations kind of bent out of
Yeah.
the line.
BG3 is
I don't,
like a once every 10-year type of game.
yeah,
It's like
no,
that shit
yeah.
doesn't get made often.
So the expectations are high right now because of
Yeah,
that game.
yeah,
Which hey,
exactly.
maybe it'll lead to better games. Maybe it'll just lead to
Maybe it'll lead to
shit
people
shows
trying to
like this one.
redo or try to do what they do, but it's slightly they like
Yeah,
miss the point of it or something.
yeah,
And, yeah.
shitty just
Oh,
appropriations
they have
almost.
a
Yeah.
billion different choices. We need to have a billion different choices, but they're all just shitty or something
Hmm.
instead. But yeah, that's good to cover that, and you're still only like fucking 5 hours into it, so you have the entire like game left. Probably it's
I know.
probably pretty big, I would imagine. So
Like I'm I'm not mad at it right now.
right now,
Maybe
tune in for
next time
next
we talk,
time.
maybe next time I talk, we
Yeah, who knows?
I'll have more to say.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and so for me, I do the Final Fantasy VII remake intermission, and then it's like another
Mhm.
day of UFO 50 or something, and then Metaphor Refantasio arrives, Peter,
Yes,
and
yes, that's good. That's on my list.
I
That's on
pretty
my
much no
list.
life this thing. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. I think for you
Yeah,
especially, it's like
yeah, I
a
definitely would too.
good like game if you are a fan of the Persona games and you want something a little bit different, maybe something a little bit more combat heavy, to sort of lead you into the other sub series of Shin
Hmm.
Megami Tensei, because this game borrows a lot from the other various series. Like there's almost like a reference or like gameplay mechanic built off of one of the other games for at least like each of them.
Hmm.
And I talked about some of those last time with the mainline ones and the Persona ones, how they sort of like intermix them in. But it's something I forgot to mention was Digital Devil Saga, which is another Shin Megami Tensei spinoff. And in that game, you have these things called combo skills, where you use two press turns, which is just two player turns, to use a more powerful like skill. So you may it and like the more powerful skill is dependent on who's in your party and what like skills they have
Hmm.
currently equipped. So you might have like Tarukaja, which I think is the one that gives a buff to a different like one party member.
Hmm.
But
Right,
the
yeah.
combo skill version of it might be you give a party wide attack buff, which is way better.
Okay, okay,
And it
okay.
costs a little bit more MP, and it costs two turns instead of just the one. And so they have that like the equivalent of it is what they call sync skills in this game, where if you have uh, certain skills equipped and or are equipped to a certain archetype, then if there's a character of a different archetype, which is just their word for class again, if you have a character of a certain archetype also in your party, then that person gets to utilize these sync skills, which some of them are two. press turn icons, but some of them are also 3 and maybe even 4. I don't think I saw any of those, but basically they work pretty much the same as Digital Devil Saga, which is it's really hard to keep track of all these like sub-series because there's
They do
DDS
have a
is Digital
lot.
Devil
Yeah.
Saga, but there's 2 DS ones. There's Devil Summoner and Devil Survivor, Peter. Devil Summoner,
Yes,
Devil
of course.
Survivor,
Yeah.
Digital Devil Saga. What the fuck?
Even the sub games have to have sub games. It's just how it is.
Is that Persona? There's Persona 4 Arena. There's Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. Persona 4 Dancing. Fucking Persona 4 Suck My Nuts. Everything. They got everything.
They do.
And the game for the demo, it was a lot of like I was a little bit worried about the story, and I didn't keep my hopes very high, and I'm sort of glad I kept them that way. So it wasn't really anything majorly impressive. The story and the game, or the story and the characters, were all around fine. There were some characters who I thought were decent, some of them where I thought were just like, okay, they're just sort of fine. They do sort of a similar thing like in Persona 5, where about like 70% of the way through the game there's like this in Persona 5 there's this moment where it's like fucking like 3 hours in a row of just like exposition, the most like convoluted silly shit ever. You know what I'm talking about. And they do something similar in Metaphor, where it's like, this character is dead, and this character you knew the entire game, they're now dead, and this character who you thought was on this side, they're now on this side, and this character who you thought was this person, they're actually this person. And it's like that for like 3 fucking hours, and it's like, Jesus Christ. And it's, whatever. And the story overall is mostly a decent time. The main villain's all right. I've seen people really praising him out there. I don't think he's the best that this like sort of wide series has ever had. He might be one of the better ones. I wouldn't really know though. I mean, compared to like the mainline SMT games, maybe some of them he's better because he's like an actual character rather than just like some random god who comes in at the last second to fucking be like, fuck you, I'm killing you. Because he is like a real dude with like real backstory and motivations and stuff that you get sort of sprinkled throughout the game, though most of it is at the end. So he's not bad as far as main villains go. And the party that you assemble are like all around, decent or whatever also, and they each have like it's also sort of similar to Persona 5 in like the social link system, where it's Persona 4 and 3, I guess, are a bit more about like you're hanging out with the dudes and you're sort of just chilling, and maybe they have like they're explaining like, I have this shitty thing going on in my life, and then you say no words and it like heals them of all their issues or whatever. And then in 5 it's like, I have this problem, help me fix it, and you just kind of watch them do things, and you're not like really hanging out with them. You're more of just like watching them maintain or like do some sort of task that like I don't really care about. I just want to like hang out with them, But I'm more forgiving in this game because, for one, there's less emphasis on it because there's only 8 ranks per character, and there's only 14 of them in total compared to the 22 or so in Persona 5. And in that game there's 10 ranks for each of them. A lot of them, or some of them, require like additional ones like in between that. But for this one, that's not like, it's not like using that like same point system where you have to like say the right dialogue things, and then by next time you get like this many points. It's just like every time you rank up with them, it's just by the next time you hang out with them, you just rank up again. It's a lot less like the time like management system of it is a lot less emphasized, and it's much easier to do like pretty much everything within the game's calendar, which I'm sure some people will appreciate. I really like Persona 5's like balance of that one. Still, to me, has the best like calendar based, like, even though Royal sort of breaks it a little bit, where like the entire last month is like, it's fucking free time basically. But in the original, it was a bit tougher. But even still, like up to that point in Royal, it's still like the amount of options that are available for you, and like the like combo potential and like the planning stuff out, and like, because I felt that a lot more strongly in that game than like still any of the other ones that I've played, including this one. Like there's a lot of different things you could do each day, but it's sort of like an illusion of choice almost, where it's just like once you get to you like start in one city and then you go to another town, and then that other town, just like all of the social stats that they give you is just like better. So you would like never do the ones in like the town again, like the first
Yeah.
one. So it's, a lot of sort of like that. And again, like the ranks is um, a lot of just you're helping the dudes solve whatever random problems they're facing, which again, I'm more okay with in this because it's literally in a fantasy setting. And it's like, I feel like this is like, okay, this is the D&D party where it's like they're having their own little side mission here. And some of them are nice, I'd say. Some of them are decent. Um, and the archetype system overall is pretty good. Again, comparing it to Digital Devil Saga, which is a game I have not played. I've only watched a let's play of it. But in that game, there's a like entire skill tree, and each party member, it's like the same skill tree for everybody, but each party member starts at a different point in the skill tree, which means like they sort of, when they first join you, they come with these skills at first, and then they're closer to like getting this set of skills that they could, sort of eventually like get to. And I sort of like that approach more. And also they have it in such a way where once your character unlocks a certain like branch of it, they just get like an entire like set of skills that they could equip on or off at any time after that, which is quite nice. In this game, it's a lot more not limiting. I mean, maybe it is, but it's because it relies on a resource. You can't just like give everybody everything. They have to get the certain levels in each archetype to get certain skills, and then once they unlock, like get to the levels in which they would unlock those skills, they then have to use a currency to like, I guess, buy those skills to be able to use them on different archetypes through the inheritance thing, which I sort of explained last time. And it's very clear that the characters, like at the beginning, it sort of seems like you can make anybody anything, which is true, but they very much sort of want you gearing them towards one or two like archetype things, which sort of makes sense. And it's clear because by the end they each like unlock this like secret like unique one
Of
that
course.
only they could use, and it's sort of like a combination of at least two or so of like the different like ultimate archetypes in one sort of thing.
Mhm.
And so they very much want you to do that because then you also unlock this extra sync skill, which is like a bunch of almighty damage. So I think that
Cool,
they
cool,
kind of
cool.
want you doing
Yeah.
that if I think everybody in the party is on like their equivalent like grandmaster whatever shit class, it's like you know they want you doing that, and it's like there's some of the archetypes seem a little unbalanced. Like some of them are clearly a bit stronger than others. Like there's this gunner one that seems kind of shitty, and meanwhile
hmm
like the mage is the one who gets like all the elemental skills. So if you want anybody to have any of those, you just have to like place levels into there, and then there's a different one called like the trickster or something, and they just have all the debuff things. So if you want to get like debilitate or all that shit, you have to put stuff into there.
hmm
Um, and so it's a weird sort of thing that really only hits by the end of the game, where it's like this sort of like imbalance thing. But for most of it, it's like uh, you know, it's fine, it's good, it's cool, and it's fun balancing it and like sort of choosing like I'm gonna put this character into this thing now and like see how that goes, type of thing. So it's still for the most part for most of the game is quite good, but it does eventually become a problem when the game as a whole starts to become a problem, which is by the final arc, the game sort of drags a little bit. It gets very like, uh, I mean, it only drags, I guess, if you end up doing like all the side quests like I ended up doing. Oops.
hmm
um, some of the areas there's like uh, asset reuse, sort of all over the place. There's sort of set different versions of the various locations. Like they use the same like layout for various different areas, which is mostly fine. But by the end of the game, you're visiting or revisiting these like three towers that are all they have the exact same layout, and it's like a little silly, like just going up them, and it's like the same thing each time. Um,
hmm
and I expected more bigger dungeons because the game initially sets you off on one that's quite big, but then there's only maybe like two or three after that point that are quite that size, which I'm not like immediately. I'm not super upset about it because it's There's a lot more combat in general and dungeon crawling in general compared to the Persona games. Even though there's less time you spend in each one, there's more of them in total. So like the actual time you spend in them is a bit more, and it's somewhere still in between that mainline SMT and the Persona games.
An interesting, yeah, it's an interesting game that they developed. Like,
Yeah, 100%, and it's like its
and
own
it
unique
feels,
sort of setting.
yeah. I don't know. Do you think it's gotten a bigger release than like Persona 5 did? I feel like Persona 5 was the biggest
I
for
doubt it,
Alice.
yeah.
And
And
then
Persona 3 was
like,
pretty big also, I'd say. Like those games are still appealing because they're gonna hit the more casual crowds of like, I just
yeah,
want to
yeah.
play a sort of simple RPG where I could bang fucking 15-year-old girls all day or something,
Yes. Yep.
or
Yep.
whatever, or whatever the kids are
A
into these
unique
days.
appeal. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's surprisingly no romance in this game,
Okay.
even though this is probably the game where it makes the most sense because you're in this fantasy
You'd
setting
think.
and
Yeah.
you're trying to become king. So in theory, you would like eventually win the king's seat, and you would need a queen
Real
or
Fire
another
Emblem
king, or
type
like
shit.
if you're into dudes and you want to marry a dude, there
Yeah.
would be, I guess, you could be a queen. Why not? So yeah, there was potential there, but they decided not to, which I'm completely fine with. Like some people are gonna stay away from this game because of that, which is
Hmm.
honestly silly. Like grow up.
Their loss.
Oh,
Yeah.
they can't, fucking just play it because
Hmm.
overall it's very good. And it's visually quite great, and the menus in this one also are bangers. The out of battle transitions and the just like the regular menus in
The art
general.
style looks great.
It's so
Yeah.
nice. The art style is very good, and the character design is quite strong also. And
Hmm.
the fucking the music, what's his name, Shigeru Meiji or whatever the fuck. He did the
Yeah.
Persona games also, and he
Yeah.
does another very excellent job with this one, with a lot of intense, sort of out there battle music with the one of the boss themes has like this big choir sort of intense thing, which is cool. Um, and yeah, the enemy designs they reuse like the same couple of things. It's less cool enemies than Persona 5 or the mainline SMT games where you're fighting up against like all those like fucking like
Yeah.
300 different demons that have been
Hmm.
designed over the course of like a decade. They've gone
Many years. Yeah.
they've been in the series for countless years. um but in this it's a bunch of just fantasy stuff. You're fighting skeletons and you're fighting fucking wolves and I don't know, yetis maybe. I don't think so. I'm making that last one up. You fight big butterflies and moths and trees, and
Okay.
stuff like
Okay.
that. You fight the typical fantasy
Monsters. Yeah.
stuff, and like the versions. Like I'm not upset by that by any means, but like comparing it to like again Persona 5 specifically because Persona 4
Hmm.
and 3 and they use like the generic shadow things which are kind of lame.
Hmm.
But in the 5 and the mainline ones, like all those dudes, it's just so sick. And
It
each of
is.
them is more unique, and there's much more enemy diversity in those games than there is in this one, both in terms of like number of total monsters, like species of them, and then there's like the different versions of them. So it's like there's the red wolf here now, and there's you go to this area, and there's they're blue, and then now they're white or
Hmm.
something like that, which is whatever,
Yeah.
fine, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and I forget. I was gonna say something else, but also there's when you shop, it does the normal like there are a bunch of shops where for the most part it's pretty typical JRPG. You got the item name and you got maybe how many they have in stock because some of the things are limited, and then you got how many you have in your inventory currently,
Hmm.
and then on the bottom like whatever you're hovering over it says like the description of them, so you could buy like a bunch of items at once through that thing. But for some reason some of the shops don't let you do that, and it's like you talk to the NPC and it's like they have these three things that you could pick from, and you pick one of them, and then Gallica, who's like the little fairy companion, fucking guidance person,
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
like, "Oh, you want this thing? This thing will do this thing," and then you have to confirm to get to the next text box, which says, "You have this many of them. Are you sure you want this?" And then from there you select yes, no, like whatever the fuck.
Sure.
And then when you select yes, the NPC's like, wow, thank you so much. Thanks for shopping here. Exit dialogue thing. And you have to talk to them again to like keep buying the new shits. It's like you already have this other menu where you let me buy as many as I want. Like in that menu.
That
So
seems
why
weird.
so why
That
are
seems
you
very weird.
Yeah, it's like what am I fucking playing Animal Crossing here? Like I have to defeat the fucking evil overlord ruler from conquering the city. I don't have time to dilly daddle while I'm trying to buy fucking fishing bait, you fucker. Or whatever I was trying to buy.
Yeah.
So that was a bit silly. And yeah, I got most of the achievements. There's like they of course did the thing where it's like you could get every achievement on the first one except for one, which is the fucking the super boss, which you have to wait until you're level 99 again because levels don't carry over New Game Plus. So it's like you essentially have to play it twice for 100%, which is it silly? I don't know. The series has been doing it for a little while now, and I think people are mostly fine with it.
Have.
Which I might someday return to this. I thought the combat overall was pretty good, and it is more complicated than just Persona's regular one. And it does require not only more thinking like within the actual combat itself, but also more planning, like a lot more of that than the Persona games. I still think overall I preferred each of them. I still prefer like the ones on either side of the spectrum, the Persona and Shin Megami Tensei. I mean, I just love the demon like recruiting and fusion shits that those ones do, which you're missing out on here. But what you get in return, it's still something very strong, I think, from the all the archetypes and the combo fucking sync things. It's still pretty cool. And yeah, I would recommend it definitely to you. You should check this shit out.
I will.
For
I will,
sure.
without a doubt. As soon as I'm done with
Ooh.
the worst game ever made.
Oh no!
How could they do this to me?
So yeah, I forget if I had anything else. I don't think so. They some of the enemy designs for the bosses, they're like based off of those like fucking weird Renaissance paintings depiction of hell, where it's like you remember Berserk? There was some of that. Yeah. Like some of the enemy designs for the bosses are like based off of those things, and they're quite cool designs, except for the fact that you fight some of them multiple times, and I really am not into fighting the same boss multiple times within the same run of the game.
It definitely drags. It
definitely contributes to the dragginess of this game, because some of them you're required to fight multiple times, and they're like the exact same fight, except it's just they're higher level now. They're like whatever level you're at now, and by the end of the game, the final area is not quite a boss gauntlet. It's sort of a tough area, but you could sort of split off the area at certain sections to fight those same bosses again, but they're optional, because if you don't defeat all of them, or if you defeat some of them, I guess the more you defeat, or if you just defeat all of them, it makes the final boss weaker, which is sort of the way you're supposed to do it, because there's an achievement for fighting like the final boss on the hard mode, which is not refighting those bosses again, which I skipped out on because I was like, they give you decent items, and I wanted to see what the game, doing it this way, as I think the way it was intended, it definitely contributed to the dragginess of the late game shit of that.
Yep.
But still, it's a good time, I'd say.
I will for sure check it out.
Mm-hmm. Did you have another one, or was that one your last? I guess that one's yours.
Still
playing it.
I'm still playing it. Yep.
I got one more that I'm currently going through right now.
All right.
That
What's
is
playing?
Yeah. I just can't get enough of these JRPGs, Peter. I just can't get enough.
You're
I can't
on a
stop it.
tear.
I might be
You
addicted
are.
to it. I don't know. Someone might need to stop me. Because I started doing this one called Star Ocean: The Second Story R, which is a remake, I guess, of the second game in this series called Star Ocean that I really don't know much about. I don't know how I came upon wanting this game and then purchasing it, but here I am. And it sort of has a bad first impression a little bit. The voice acting is not great. it takes a little bit of getting used to. I'm sort of used to it by now, but like at first it was like, what the fuck are they, like the line delivery. I feel like the voice direction isn't very good because I recognize a lot of the voices and I know they've done much better stuff. Like, so it's just a matter of like, if everybody is like this, then it has to be someone a bit higher up, which is the voice direction, is what I conclude. And it does this weird thing where you could name, it's a JRPG, so it's just fucking, you have a party of dudes, and you could name each of them, or at least you could change their first name, and their last name is just, this constant whatever thing. And they do this weird thing where you can name them, but when it comes time for their name to be voiced in a voice cutscene, it just says their default name, while the text says the name that you wrote for them.
Oh.
So I changed the main character. You get to choose between two main characters. So the dude I chose was Claude. Is his official canon name, whatever. I don't give a shit. I'm naming him I'm naming him Winderweist without the E between the D and the R because of character limits. So I named him Winderweist because that's what I think he should be named. And the game insists upon calling him Claude despite showing me visually that his name is Winderweist. It's really weird and off-putting because I assume in the original game it was one of those where you get to name the party members, because a lot of those old JRPGs before voice acting, it was just a bunch of text. They let you do that. Like the Final Fantasy games let you do that. In the original Final Fantasy game, they let you name all the characters, which I did. I took full advantage of that because why not?
I did not. Hell no.
You didn't play? Wait, did you play the original Final Fantasy VII?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. Sorry.
Which one?
One.
Oh, the first one?
I played through 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you stopped.
Yeah. I will eventually.
Old games be old games. I feel like those are pretty hard to get through in the modern day, especially.
Yeah.
But are you the type of guy to just default the like names to like the blah 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 canon names?
Yep. Yeah. Usually.
No, you gotta fucking. It's a completely unique experience. I'm the only person on the planet who is named Claude Winderweist. I'm the only person.
I'm just doing it as the director's intent, as the game designer's intent.
I'm doing it my own way, okay.
Right.
But in the original Final Fantasy VII, it lets you name the characters, and by the time the remake comes out, they're doing full voice acting. So it's, Cloud is Cloud. It can't really be anything other than that. In Persona 5, it lets you name the character, but they go by a title. They just get called Joker all the time, regardless of what you name them. Or they call you dude or buddy or man or guy.
That's usually how it's done now.
Yeah, and
Dragon Age. Yeah, your title.
Yeah, I was gonna mention Mass Effect. Yeah. Like it lets you name the first name, but you just go by Shepard, which is your last name. And it's a game from Japan, so you would think that they would do even though it's a fantasy thing. But in Japan, most of the time, if you're just being not very immensely familiar with them, you would be calling them by their last name, and the characters' last names don't change. So it's like, if it was just
would be a workaround.
Yeah, if it was just the main character, they could maybe call him some title like Captain or something, which is what Persona 4 does. They just call him Captain, some sort of title like that. But I think since it's every party member, they just like I don't know, like did they fucking make the decision to have everything fully voiced and they wrote everything down and then they voice acted it and then they were like, oh wait, but the original game you can name them, so we need to do that here, and then they just last minute did it with and thought that would be okay. It's really off-putting. It's extremely off-putting at first, but now it's just at the point where it's just kind of funny. Like I'm not like
this is Claude.
Yeah, I'm not bummed out about it. I can accept it as being the way it is. But that did initially sort of worry me that this was going to be some sort of weird, unpolished mess that looked clean on the surface, but like once you start getting into it, it's like this weird kind of mess. But it's not that at all. I'm having a pretty good time with it. I'd say it's. I'm curious to see what the original video game was like. I assume it was a turn-based thing. In this one, it's like it's that like sort of 2D, 3D thing where you're like pixel dudes walking around in like a 3D environment, which I think looks quite nice.
Yeah.
And in battle, it's like you're moving around in a 3D sort of area, and you have like normal attacks and just different skills and stuff, and you could control party members to do different things and jump around between characters and whatnot. And I think it's good overall. The story so far is like whatever. It's decent. It's a little like it's interesting because it's like a sci-fi fantasy thing. So it's like you start off as the character I chose. You start off in space, and then he gets beamed down to this like technically in the past, like fucking if a first world country was a planet or something, it's like that to them. Whereas they're stuck in fantasy land, but they have magic, but the sci-fi people just use guns and stuff. I guess magic is, I don't know, it's old fashioned, or it's less useful than gun, I guess. Which, to be fair, he does like bring a gun with him, and he uses it like once or twice, and they're like, "Holy fuck, he's the greatest dude ever." They think he's like the chosen one or whatever type of thing, which is a little funny. There's some decent character moments in this, but nothing that like immensely wins me over. There's this one dude who, like, on a side quest, there's like this dragon in the caves that you could go just find and try to fight, but you don't actually end up fighting it. You just see this dude fight it, and then some weird like flash happens, and the dragon like miniaturizes and just attaches to his back. So he's got this two-headed dragon thing attached to his back, and it's such a weird like concept, and it's like I'm and the designs of the two dragons themselves are quite nice, because it's like one's red, one's blue, and they each have like sort of like inverse like features of like the scales go one way for the one dragon. They have the horns like this one way for one dragon. It's like, you know, complementary for the other. Yeah, it's cool. And it's just like, it's like, what the fuck, why is this happening all of a sudden, you know? But it's kind of fun. It sort of reminds me of original, or I guess even the remake of Final Fantasy VII. To compare it again to that, it's like Cloud has like a small little harem going on, which is kind of silly. In this game, it's sort of the same thing where blonde boys, Cloud and Claude, you know, you get fucking some random girls like them for whatever reason. It doesn't really make sense, but I don't know, whatever. And yeah, it's so far it's good. There's this one point where like, so there's like all across the map, it's very good about telling you when certain objectives are available to you, and it's really easy to retraverse the world. Like almost every like point you go to, you can just teleport to that. Like in the dungeons, there's multiple. You just go to the save points in the dungeons, and they're spread out pretty fairly. And in like the town and overworld and stuff, you could just go from one town to the other, almost down to like the exact building. For like most of them, like you could just like teleport straight there, and it's really handy. And you could even like teleport in the middle of dungeons. Like if you're like, I'm fucked and I need to go leave right now, you don't need to like use an item to like leave. You just press the map button and you just go there. It's pretty intuitive and it's nice. And on the map, it also shows you like, here's this thing, this like side quest is available here, and they have like a little symbol next to it, like an hourglass if there's some sort of timed objective along with it. And there's this other thing called PA, which I forget what it stands for, but it's basically just the party character interaction thing, where there's sort of an affinity system where you like hang out with them, and there's like a certain dialogue tree sometimes, and depending on what you choose, it could go up or down your like affinity with them. And the way they explained it is that it affects endings of the game, which apparently there might be a lot of different things. A lot of different endings, I'm not sure. But like one of these things was the most interesting and baffling thing I'd like come across in a long time in a JRPG like this, where you activate this to do the PA thing. You have to like teleport to the town, and you press square, which activates PA mode, which your party members separate, and like you can't like go anywhere until you've exited the mode or whatever. And when you enter that mode in this one town, there's just this boy who appears. And when you talk to him, the only thing he says is, "My dad is dead." And if you exit the PA mode, he just leaves. And if you go back in, he's there again. And no matter how many times you talk to him, he just says the same thing. Like over and over.
What?
And it really caught me off guard, because the other PA thing is, it's like, okay, you start talking to the dude and then just dialogue exchange happens and then it's over. But in this, it's like, what the fuck is going on here? And I look it up, and I guess other people had run into this issue too of not knowing what to do. And apparently, the solution is you have to steal from him. There's a
What? That's how you're supposed to interact
there's like a mechanic for pickpocketing, which this game also has like a very like weird and intricate, unique system for like out of combat skills that also affects in combat stuff, which I could I guess say in a minute. But I hadn't done that yet in the game before. But once you unlock that pickpocket skill and you also get an item that lets you do it, you could, I think, essentially steal from any NPC in the game that you just come across, which is kind of insane. Like, I think even the ones that like are important to the story, you could just like walk up to them and steal from them. Maybe I haven't really dealt with it too much because they like anytime you steal from somebody, it like decreases points for the affinities of characters. But I don't really want to fuck with them trying to get as good of a thing as I can. But it's interesting that you could do that. And so you're required to do that for this little side escapade thing. And so you pickpocket from him and you get this locket and then you just run away and the character opens it and sees that it's a photo of his dad, supposedly. And from there, the dialogue option pops up and it's like, I don't need this, or I should give it back to him. And if you decide the first one, he just throws it into the fucking ocean. He eats it off. It's like, what are you doing? What do you mean? This is the protagonist of the game. This is like the moral dude who's like sort of a nice guy. It makes no sense, but it's crazy.
Who made that?
I don't know. And if you choose to give it back,
intern developer,
yeah, just someone playing a prank, like hoping that like the whoever like is overseeing it doesn't find out about it.
But I did not check that.
Yeah, but like, and if you choose the other option to give it back, it's like, oh, I found this thing over there. You dropped it, right? And he's like, oh my god, thank you so much. I thought I lost it. This is the thing I care about so much. Thank you so much, mister. And he just walks off. And it's like, you don't gain any affinity points from that. You don't gain any stats or any items or anything. It just is like this pure random moment that exists in this weird game. And it caught me extremely off guard because it's like, I've never, like, what the...
I mean, who discovered that's how you're supposed to, like,
yeah, I know.
Who attempted to steal from him?
Well, it's because like once you do have that skill and the item, it's just every NPC you go up
you can do it to anyone.
It says talk or like interact and then another button to steal. So it's like it just shows on the screen that you could do that every time. But since I didn't have that, I had no idea what the fuck was going on. But yeah, it has this sort of interesting balance between the in combat skill points and then the out of combat skill things, where it's like, for example, there's a cooking stat that you could have, and the higher the cooking stat, the higher fucking different food recipe things you can make, and the higher your odds of actually making them become. But also, when you increase the cooking stat, it increases your attack by 10. So it's like, it's sort of doing this both, like in both spots, in and out of combat. And it's a little bit complicated at first because there's like a billion of them. But you sort of get to an understanding of what's sort of maybe happening a little bit. Again, I'm playing this thing for the first time. I haven't really read anything about this game. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm certainly doing, and I'm doing fine, I'd say, for whatever normal mode. And yeah, it's relatively on the shorter side of the JRPG scale. I think it's less than 30 hours. So I'm maybe like halfway, at least, through the thing.
That's not too bad.
I just got introduced to the big bads, the whole group of them. So I think I'm nearing the end of the shit, but I still have at least a couple party members to encounter. So looking forward to that in the rest of the game. I was sort of feeling iffy about it at first, but it sort of won me over a little bit over time, and I'm enjoying it a lot more now. So I'll probably give another update on that next time.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Oh, and the art style is very good. The art style is like, and the character design, both of them are really good. Like maybe some of my favorites. Yeah. In terms of art design, yeah.
All right. That takes us to the end of our video games, correct?
Ooh, yes, sir.
All right, music update.
Mm.
It's been a lot that's released since the last time we
Yeah,
talked.
remember the fucking first time we did this? It was like 1 week, and it was like
Yeah,
six different things. It's been like a month now, so.
has been a while. Um, but to keep you updated,
Mm.
I don't know if you're still going through my liked
Oh,
playlists,
I am,
but
Peter. I'll give my
all
update in a
right,
minute.
the recent um, recommendations I have for you, and I
Mm.
can send these over on Discord or something. Um,
That would be
is
helpful for me,
firstly,
especially for
yeah,
editing.
is firstly Gene Dawson.
Oh, okay.
So
I've heard of this person.
you've heard of him. We love him in this friend group. He just dropped a new album
Yeah.
called Glimmer of God, and it's really solid, kind of alt pop, kind of similar to Joji, but I would say I like it even better. I think his voice has gotten stronger, just like really good production, very kind of lush, like nocturnal, like beats and instrumentation. Very, very good album. I'm enjoying a lot. Bon Iver just came out with a little EP, kind of three full songs called Sable, and it's really good. Bon Iver is like classic
Hmm.
indie folk, kind of like really great artist, and Sable is like a really nice kind of return to form, as they haven't really been putting out a ton of music in a while. So this was really good to hear. Peach Pit also just after like 2 or 3 years came out with a new one, Magpie, classic indie rock tunes, very kind of bright and catchy stuff, very listenable. I'm enjoying that. Um, and then Laura Marling came out with maybe my album of the year. I love it so much. Patterns in Repeat. It's incredibly gorgeous, kind of singer-songwriter folk, stripped back, like really kind of chamber music, but it's all like kind of recorded in her house and like
Hmm.
just lovely, lovely, lovely tunes all about like kind of motherhood and love. As she just had a daughter recently, and I think it's
And
a
it
beautiful
changed
album.
her.
Yeah, Patterns and Repeat is what it's called, and
Okay.
it's one of my favorites of the year. Tyler, the Creator, came back and released a pretty great rap album, Chromacopia. He's just such a versatile artist at this point. Each of his album rollouts for the past like 4 or 5 have been fantastic. He's got the sauce. He's just like an incredibly creative and um, kind of visionary artist that I'm always excited to see what he does next. And
Hmm.
Chromacopia delivered, really kind of introspective, the most introspective we've seen Tyler be really on an album, especially now that he's kind of hitting 30 and he's kind of looking back at his life and like, um, it almost reminds me of like Kanye's like heartbreaking like late registration era. Um, but like Tyler is a great songwriter and has some great beats, so very good album from him. Another album that came out recently, The Cure, after 16 years. The Kings of the 80s, they have put out so many great, great records, so many
They
classics
just
that
had
have gone
something
to like,
recently?
yeah, they just
Damn.
dropped an album last week or 2 weeks ago, Songs of a Lost World. And I was, when they started dropping singles last month or a couple months ago. And when I first saw the notification for that, I was a little
You're like,
hesitant. I
"Oh,
was
is
like,
some other group named The Cure?"
yeah, I was like, are they actually dropping? And if they are, is it going to be any good? Because after 16 years, it's very rare that
Yeah.
you see a band come back and like still
Yeah.
make great music. But I'd say they fucking nailed it. They came back and it's a great album. Um, would I put it as like one of their best? No, but they've got like some really high highs and they have an extremely strong discography.
Hmm.
But this is a great addition to it, and really nice is what I figure might be a swan song kind of album. Um, just as kind of like sad and depressing as all of their other stuff, but also kind of gorgeous in a way and like really like grand and beautiful. I love their the production is a little strange at times on this album, like a little harsh and like kind of a little flat, flatter than I would like. But I think overall, they've kind of honed in on their sound so well and so impressively after so many years. So definitely recommend checking that out. Haley Hendricks also came out with her second album in quite a while, and I'm enjoying it a lot. Seed of a Seed is what it's called. It's pretty kind of gorgeous, like indie folk, singer-songwriter, kind of chamber folk stuff. She has just a lovely kind of ear for tunes, and her songwriting is really pretty and like poetic. And it's a very solid and pretty listen. I would recommend. And then Mount Erie, headed by, or who is also known as Phil Elverum of the Microphones fame, just like one of the classic like lo-fi indie singer-songwriters over the past decades, just came out with his album Night Palace, which is a really dense, kind of strange 1 hour 20-minute album, full of like kind of like short snippets of like songs, like vignettes almost, that kind of go across a broad range of like harsh noise, like kind of like heavy metal influenced tracks to like more classic like indie rock, like kind of bangers, to more like instrumental ambient pieces, to like just like standard, like more standard microphones kind of Mount Erie songwriting. It's a really interesting album. I'm enjoying it a lot, especially if like you have already been listening to him. It's fairly kind of it's well informed by his other albums, and it kind of helps you appreciate what he's writing about and kind of where this album is coming from a lot. So that is all of the albums that I would recommend you check out now that you can keep updated.
Yeah, cool. Some good ones all around. I won't actually hit those until maybe a decade or two from now. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how that
Yeah.
goes.
I mean, how far are you along in part 2?
So I've graduated from Bjork and my shit.
Okay.
I'm now on to Neil
Bjork.
Young, which is something
Classic.
a little bit more up, I guess, my alley.
Yeah.
Stuff that like I'm sort of used
Have you
to.
listened to him before?
Yeah, I don't think I've listened to his solo stuff, but the
Okay.
Neil fucking Young,
Yeah.
whatever the shit.
Mhm.
Those
Crazy
guys.
Horses.
Yeah. So it's the On the Beach is the album thing. I think it sort of looks like a Wes Anderson thing with like the yellow and the brown,
It's a
like the yellow brown
great
with
album.
the rocket ship. Yeah, I'm listening to that right now. Bjork, I did sort of maybe enjoy. I'll probably explain this a lot on
That's good to.
this silly channel, but it's like, I can't just listen to a song once and be like, I like it or I love it or something. I have to like listen to it many, many times over maybe a long period of time. So but she's on my like list of people to go back to, like, and listen to like her, beyond that. Just, I think I only listened to that one album of hers on that thing. I assume you have more, but it's just like somewhere else in the grand scheme of liked songs, part, whatever the shit.
It's just 1,000 songs.
It's only 1,000 songs per. It's 20.
I hit 20.
20,000.
Part
25
20.
almost.
So now we're over at 20,000.
Yeah. And so Neil Young. We'll see how long I'm on his thing for. I mean, I'm familiar with the type of stuff a lot more than say like a lot of the other stuff on there. I'm not as into like the rap or the R&B or the whatever other uh, noise
Sure.
making
Yeah. Yeah.
things that occur. I'm just not as
There's a lot.
into that. Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I I never expected anyone to go through
yeah.
every one of those
Well, we
playlists
don't know if
because it's
someone will
mostly for
actually
my
get through all
listening.
the way. It's but
Yeah.
I admire the versatility or like the wideness of the stuff that
Yeah,
you
it's a
can
little bit
enjoy
of
because
everything.
I wish I sort of had that. I'm so narrow and
Hmm.
for music specifically what I can
I mean, I think that's
enjoy.
fairly
Yeah,
normal.
for
Like,
sure.
I don't know if
People have their
everyone
preferred genres that
has
they
to
just sort of stick
or
to.
should. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
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 So we'll
There's
see
a
where
lot
that
of good
goes
music
next
out
time,
there,
I
and
guess.
mhm.
Yeah, what?
There's a lot of good music out there, and
No, yeah,
you
sure.
don't have to like
For sure.
go out there and find it. You could just listen to the ones that you like, and that's
I've
more
been
than
listening to the
enough.
same fucking 500 songs for the past 10 years. You have no idea.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That's my music thing. On the books, Peter.
On to books. I have not been reading. I've
Hmm.
it's I've been finishing a lot of games.
Oh, you haven't been reading books, huh?
I haven't.
Ooh, you're slacking there. But so yeah, I was doing Metaphor Refantasio. I was no lifing that a little bit, but with fucking Star Ocean, the second story R.
Mhm.
Uh, Putting a little bit less time into it each day, which sort of opens the time to do other stuff. Like now I'm watching Lost alongside that, but now I also have
Mhm.
time to do this other thing, specifically picking up where I left off, Peter, with The Way of Kings, uh,
Yes.
which
Yes.
at this rate I'll probably maybe finish before the end of the year. I'm
Okay.
thinking.
Okay.
I'm thinking. And then maybe we could cover it by then. And yeah, it's still just like
Are you?
it's so nice because like I'm on part two or book two or whatever it's
Sure.
considered.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a little bit through that. I don't know how proportionately far into that one I am, but I'm a ways into that, and it's really cool. Just like following one dude, and then you go to another, and you utilize your knowledge of one character and apply it to like their thoughts and feelings on the same situation, but experienced from a completely different perspective. Like you have this dude,
Yeah.
Kaladin, who's like pretty low in the ranks of society, and he has to perform this specific task for the war. And then you see the behind the scenes type of thing where you meet the dude who decided that
Hmm.
like and like organized that task to be set out, and he's like in charge of all of that. And it's like, oh shit, like that's
Yep.
nuts,
Yep.
and that's so
Yep.
cool. And you see it from not that dude's perspective specifically, but a dude who closely works to and is sort of in the same league as that character, and they're exploring like a lot of different ideas, and it's I mean just some of the best writing I think I've come across. In all honesty, I'm so ready to suck this book
Wow.
off in like a
Hey,
couple
hell
months
yeah.
from
Hell
now.
yeah.
It's
Oh, I'm
it's so good.
glad. We've been trying to get you to read it, and I bet Jake and Will would love to talk to you about it
Oh yeah,
because it's very it's a great series that's super readable and very engaging.
yeah,
And if you like kind of like high fantasy, like with like interesting magic systems and like
yeah.
pretty structured stories,
Yeah,
but
the
like
magic is super
really
layered because
broad.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Because
no, it's a.
I enjoyed Dune, I guess.
Hmm.
But like I don't know, something about the not only the writing but the concepts also just in general in this just align with me, I suppose, a bit more. And it's also more readable than Dune, I would
Yes,
say, in terms of like
much more.
for one actually understanding what's happening maybe. Even though there's a lot of like it doesn't like explain literally everything to you in your face. You do have to be thinking about things. And there have been
If you're
plenty of
liking
times
it,
where I've been attempted to like go to the wiki and look up like what it remind me like what a term means, or if like I even have figured it out by them. But I don't want to spoil myself because on
no,
those wikis it's
don't.
super
Yeah,
easy to
yes,
get spoiled. Like
don't do
never
that.
go to a character page on anything you're currently doing
No,
because it'll be like
nope.
deceased or some shit
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that.
Like, what's that cross next to their name? No. Yeah.
Born this year to this year. It's like, oh wait,
If you
I'm
like,
in.
if
Wait,
you're
I'm on
liking
that
it,
year in the book.
oh shit. If you're liking it this much right now, then you're gonna love it. By the
Really?
ending to this book is maybe like one of my favorite moments in the entire series.
Wow.
The climax. Brandon Sanderson writes like climactic moments and like kind of like really good like really good moments that just like kind of bring the story to a great like finish and like
Cool.
big set piece. And it's really, really a great moment in this first book. So
Nice. Well, I look forward to that.
can't
It'll
wait
still
to
be a minute
hear.
before I get there.
Yeah,
Of course, I'm only,
yeah, yeah.
I'm not even at the halfway mark. I don't think. Um, but yeah, I'll be trekking through that as time goes on. So yeah.
Very, very cool.
All right, Peter. YouTube, aka for sports or for you sports. I fucked that up.
Sports.
So yeah. Wow, there's been a
Yeah,
month of sports, Peter. What's been happening?
there has been
If
a
anything,
lot.
if a singular thing has happened, at least.
Specifically, I mean, recently, I mean, Packers, my team, lost the Lions,
Oh
which sucks.
no.
Our divisional rivals, they take it clear at the top of the division, which sucks. But hey, like a ton of my friends are Lions fans, so I'm like, whatever, enjoy it while you can.
Hmm.
Um, the rest of the NFL is like in a pretty normal state of flux, I'd say. It's hard to ever judge how a team is going to end up doing. I don't think anyone really is going to nail their predictions for the league, um, but it's always got a bit of drama to it.
Hmm.
Um, Other than that, I kind of fell off watching sports.
No, he fell off.
I've basically been maining video games.
Yeah. No, you
I've
you
been
hit a
just
lot. You hit a
gaming.
lot.
Yeah, yeah. It took some time to finish like both the Jedi games and Liza P and God of War Ragnarok.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yep. Those will do it. Um, for me, uh, I'm all about that nostalgia sometimes. Um,
Hmm.
and there is still this channel called Game Grumps, who was, they were a pretty big part of my life, I suppose, during,
Hmm.
uh, I think I started watching their stuff like in middle school into a couple of years into high school. I think I stopped watching their stuff around 2018 or 19. But for a while there, I was pretty consistently watching like a bunch of their stuff and catching up on like a lot of the old ones from like the older shit. Like, have you watched them or have you, or do you
I
just know
have
of
not
them?
actually. I know of
You
them,
just know
but
of them.
surprisingly, I've never watched
Yeah,
any
I mean
of
they're
them.
fairly influential in the YouTube sphere. Them
Oh,
and
without a
the
doubt.
only
Yeah, yeah.
plays in that sort of style of let's play content, which I'm very much here for. And
Hmm.
for some reason, just someone activated inside of me, and I'm like, I have to rewatch them play Sonic 06 for the third time,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's just a hilarious little time. It's the John era, so it's this dude John Tron and this dude Ego Raptor, this animator and this YouTuber dude combining fucking their friendship into one little channel thing, and it's silly. And the jokes they're making, some of them miss, but some of them really land. And it's just they're like making you so much of them, and they're just saying stupid things all the time that it's like the bad ones that don't really linger that much. So you just get straight to the other funny stuff or whatever silly reactions they're having to the very broken game that is Sonic 2006. Um, it's just it's such a great little series of videos that I don't know, I really like them. It's
Comfort watch for you.
I've yeah, because I originally watched
Yeah.
them when I was like 14 or something,
Yeah, yeah,
and then at
yeah,
some
yeah.
point I rewatched
Middle
them
school.
a couple years after that for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And now I'm at the point where I pretty much completely understand every reference or like thing that they're saying. Like before, I didn't know who fucking Dennis Hopper was, but they're like comparing this NPC to he looks like Dennis Hopper, and like I know who that
Yeah,
is now
yeah. No,
because
you
I've seen him
do.
in
Yeah.
movies, and it's like oh, it's that guy, and it's it's a different sort of look. Just onto their thing in general. I'm like not very far in it. I meant to be watching more episodes of theirs, but then I started watching Lost, so I'm like, well, that's just a little bit more entertaining in like
Hmm.
a a professional television
Yeah.
show kind of way.
Bit
But
higher
I
budget.
will
Yeah.
go, return to this series some more and see how that goes. But I do remember the first maybe 12 or 13 episodes or so being a little bit better than the rest of it. The rest of it's still good. It's just that like episode 12 is such a good, like iconic episode. That's like if it doesn't make you laugh, you may not have a soul or something. So I would almost maybe it's 11 years old. That YouTube series but they also played over the course of a year or something because they can't just like it's a tough stupid game and they can't like tackle it all at once, so it's a little bit silly in that regard. But like so there's that, and then like by the end it falls off maybe a little bit, but I would maybe recommend the first, if you could get through the first 12 episodes, because they're only 10 minutes long, because it's back in those days of YouTube where it's like they can only be 10 minutes for whatever reason. So if you could get through those, but if by the 12th episode you haven't laughed a singular time, just stop. Just save yourself. but I think it's funny. So and it's I don't know. It's cool. It's whatever. So
I should check them out.
Why not?
I mean, everyone knows them.
They probably have still dropped off by this point. I haven't really rechecked them out. I don't think, but yeah, whatever. It's cool though. So that's my thing, which I guess brings us to the end. So yeah,
it does.
We'll probably do this more on a monthly basis, I'd say, than a weekly one going forward. It's pretty hard to do it or even remember to do it like weekly. But I'd say like this hour or this monthly thing, with it being like slightly longer, I think it's like completely fine and doable, or at least more so than the weekly or bi-weekly equivalent, I'd say. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you for watching.